episode 255 of the White Cat Outdoors podcast, bringing you to the table while we talk about the outdoors. Well, we asked you guys before we started this episode to let us know if you wanted one long episode from Colorado or if we wanted to break it up into two. And after a day or two of voting, you guys decided that you wanted a long episode of Uncle Frank's buck and Frankie's. So grab a drink. Hope you got a long car ride, or if you're chilling for the night, get a couple drinks, because this is a long one. It's over 2 hours, almost 2.5 hours. It's filled with a ton of good stories, some missed stocks, some successful stocks, and a lot of laughter, a lot of tears. But at the end of the day, it was a phenomenal episode, and we hope you guys enjoy it. But I'm going to quit rambling, and let's get tuned in to this week's episode.
So I did the cardinal sin. I pull up my bow, and then I look dead at his antlers. I got out of the truck, and when I slammed the door, I heard gobbles all around me.
Let's see it.
Alaska, moose, spot and sock. That is the bucket list. I agree.
White Cat Outdoors. White Cat Outdoors.
What's going on, everybody? I don't know what episode it is. 255?
255.
Ish. This is White hanging out in the studio.
Nick, what's going on?
Tom here.
And Frank, Whitey's dad.
We have a guest, Frank, or Uncle Frank, and then Austin ditched us. But you're a familiar voice on the podcast, so it's not like it's your first time.
Couple of times.
First time in the new temporary studio.
Yeah, I mean, big upgrades on the equipment. I mean, the mics, the whole 9 yards.
Yeah, it's a lot different than the last time you were on.
And we're not drinking your beer anymore.
That's probably the best upgrade.
You're
that
drinking
I'm
our
seeing
whiskey.
Right now. Yeah, I get to drink your whiskey, your beer. Mine's safe at home where it belongs. I kind of like this.
Yeah. Yeah, we're moving on up in the world.
Yeah, I think this, like I said, this is a temporary deal, but we haven't really talked too much about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, everybody has been really hounding us to have you back on the podcast.
Can't imagine why. Well, they don't know me.
Yeah. Well, everyone wants an Alaska episode, so we will have to do that soon because we never talked about your Alaska trip, but that's not what today is about.
We did have a good Alaska trip. Well, I actually had an interesting one this year. There's a lot to talk about.
Yeah, so we'll have to have a whole nother episode here in a few weeks to cover all of that stuff because we had quite a few people asking for it.
All right. Yeah, we'll get to that.
So,
but this is mule deer season.
Yes, it is. Everyone knows we've been talking about it for a couple weeks that Dad and I went out to Colorado, and it has been driving me absolutely insane. I have not told Nick or Tom.
we don't know anything about it other than the bucks were down.
Yeah,
Really?
they've seen pictures. They have not heard any bit of the story.
Well, 'cause
Perfect.
It makes it really tough to do a podcast when we already know the story. Like, how am I supposed to ask questions that I know the answers to? So we really do try to keep it as authentic as possible by not asking too much.
It's been really hard because it gets brought up a lot, and I start talking about it. I'm like, son of a bitch, I can't say anything. Like, I can say something, but I wanted to save it for tonight so that so you guys are just as excited as everybody else about this because you haven't heard the story 3 times already.
And we've definitely amped this one up because I feel like we've gotten a lot of requests in the last couple of weeks. Like, when is this podcast coming out? Like, everybody, we kind of hinted, hey, some success went down out in Colorado.
And I was like posting on the Instagram story different things throughout the day. I didn't post any deer pictures, but like empty brass casings and stuff. So people knew stuff was going on. But
And I did post one picture of both your bucks, but I kind of blurred it a little bit. So like you didn't get a crisp photo. Like, just like, hey, there's some deer here. You know, that was to get the vote. And listeners voted. They wanted one long episode of the entire hunt. So that's what we're doing here tonight.
heck yeah.
Very good.
I think it's fair to start almost before the hunt and talk about, where you guys went generally. Obviously, we don't need to know exactly the unit, but kind of what brought this opportunity to you guys, what made you go to Colorado, and kind of start the whole story there.
Do you want to start that off? Why do you want me to start it off?
You can go ahead and start
All
it
right.
off.
So the guy that kind of runs the show out there at this ranch, it's a private ranch. It is surrounded with, there's a lot of public land mixed in and around and stuff like that. There's other outfitters, so it's not like it's this big exclusive, impossible thing to get into.
When you say ranch, it's free range. It's not.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, okay.
It's a cattle ranch.
Yeah, the only
Okay, when you say
fence,
ranch, it's cattle
The only
ranch.
fence is to keep cows out of your yard.
Okay.
Other than that, it's yeah. So
And it's low barbed wire fence. It's not like
Yeah.
it's
nothing's containing animals.
Gotcha.
So, but a guy that I've known for a long time here in the area as a business in Cambridge Springs, he kind of runs the show out there. His name's Gary. And he's been out there, 20 years, I think he said, Whitey? 25?
No, I don't think it's quite that long. I don't. Well, actually, I take that back. I think he's been going out there with. He was there with another outfitter first, and then
Yep. Yes. So he's been running the show out there, and a lot of our friends here have been out there and hunted with him for elk and for mule deer and for antelope. And it just kind of, balloons that, the more friends that go out, the more friends that want to go out. Well,
I can already feel that effect hitting me.
right. And it's not an easy place to get tags. You got to try to draw tags, or there's landowner tags and stuff. And Gary's been pretty good about sharing landowner tags with friends back here at home.
And the landowner tags he gets every year, and he distributes them, as people buy hunts from him and stuff. But you can put into draw tags, and those tags are good for the public land. The landowner tags are only good for the private land. You aren't even allowed to stop on public land if you're driving across it, because the ranch is kind of broken up into several different pieces that are on other sides of the BLM land. And when you're driving to those other pieces of private, you can't stop and glass on the.
You have to drive straight through.
Yeah.
That's all there is to it.
So
With the tags that we had.
So with landowner tag, how much property did you guys have access to hunt?
I want to say about 4,500 acres, 5,000 acres, something like that.
I want to say it was around 4. I can look at Onyx right now and tell you.
I didn't add it all up, but somewhere between 4,000 and 5,000 acres.
So it's some room to work for a week.
Oh yes, yeah. We had plenty of for a mule deer hunt. We had plenty of land to hunt, plenty of things to see, and obviously, you can look off of it and see stuff around you too. So.
Yeah, because I'm sure where you guys did a lot of glassing, from what I understand. You could probably see stuff that's, while you're sitting on this private land, you could probably see public.
Correct.
From glassing, like, oh, hey, there's a buck over there. We can't even go after him,
Right.
but that's cool to see.
Mm-hmm. And it's one thing that helps hold your interest too. When you're seeing, maybe right in front of you, the first 1,000 yards that you're looking at, there's nothing to go chase right away. But I mean, just another 1,000 yards beyond that, and on the other side of a line on a map, there's critters, so it's just a matter of time before they shuffle through. You always feel like there's something to hunt. But so anyways, it took us a few years to get in. I kind of reached out to Gary a couple of years back, and
It's 4,300 acres.
4,300 acres.
Yep.
Okay. And I reached out to Gary and said, hey, my son and I'd like to come out. And he's like, well, that's great. He'd be happy to have us, but it just takes a couple of years to either draw a tag or for him to get a landowner tag freed up and stuff.
I'm sure he's got kind of like a waiting list.
He does.
And he has
mental.
recurring customers that come back. People come back every year, and obviously he's gonna take care of them first. If they want to
Absolutely.
come back, they've been there before. He's gonna bring them back first. So,
Correct.
and that makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but he does a really good job of trying to work people in and get them in there as quick as possible. But sometimes it just takes a little bit. So
That's all hunting is patience, right?
right.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
So even like the guys he had guiding for him, we knew, before we ever went out there, a couple of younger guys he had that were doing like the elk hunts. I was familiar with because they're from this area, but didn't really know them. Got to know them out there a little bit, Clay and Travis, and great guys. I mean, everybody out there was real easy to get along with. Shout out to Skeeter, used to own Hobbs Lumber here in Edinburgh. He took care of us real good while Whitey and I were out there.
Awesome.
And Gracie, the cook, Won't lose weight on the hunt. I promise you that.
Yeah.
She did a real good job taking care of everybody. So.
Every calorie you burned while on your hikes, you put it right back in your
Yeah.
system at night.
Yeah. So, but it was really good, really good. We were looking forward to spending time with friends, and the conditions, the hunt itself, the accommodations, all top notch. I mean, everything was very, very easy.
Yeah, that was kind of the joke the whole time, because we spend a lot of time in Alaska. Everyone was like, this isn't quite like living in a tent up in Alaska, is it? And it was the exact opposite of that. It was
You came home to a bed, a cooked meal.
You weren't worried about a grizzly bear tearing open the side of your tent.
No, we missed absolutely no college football.
yeah.
So you said it takes a few years to get available to hunt with this guy.
Yes.
So what kind of notice did you guys get where you were like, hey, this is happening this year?
Gary let us know. I mean, almost a year in
Yeah,
advance.
it was about a year.
Okay,
in
so you had
advance.
some time to prep.
And we had been
knew
in
this was
contact
coming.
with him for a couple years trying to get out there, and the previous year he was like, yeah, it might happen this year, but don't like get your hopes way up, but there's a chance. And then it didn't end up happening. And then as soon as that season was over, he was like, hey, next year you guys are for sure coming out, so make your plans now.
Yeah, so there was nothing, no surprise about anything. So and then I guess so we decided to fly out. Mainly because Whitey, he was a little tight on time. He didn't have the freedom with vacation and stuff that I could manipulate my schedule a little bit easier. So we decided to fly out to save on time.
And it was really nice because, like he mentioned, we know everybody out there, so we were able to send our gear out with Skeeter, and we knew some other people that were going out before us to hunt the week before we were, and they were offering, if there's anything you need us to take out, give it to us, we'll take it. So we had plenty of avenues to get gear out there and get gear home and meat and stuff home, so we didn't have to worry about that with flying.
The flying does turn into a bite in the ass when this is all over said.
Yeah.
I heard a few rumors. We'll save that
we'll
for
get
the
to
end.
that at the end. But the original plan was this will save time.
Yeah. Flying out, it definitely saved time. The flight out was perfect. We had zero issues, very short layover, the one that we had, and it was super easy.
Yeah. Skeeter came down, picked us up at the airport in Steamboat Springs. It was an hour and 15-minute ride then over to where camp was, and we're literally right on the Wyoming-Colorado border. When you look out the window of the lodge and across the street, you're watching mule deer come down the hill out of Wyoming, walk across the street into Colorado where you can shoot them.
Yeah.
That's kind of cool.
If you look out the back window, you're looking into Colorado.
So that's as much on the line as you can get.
Yeah.
But so we get out there. The first night was more of just kind of we got in a day early, really.
Yeah, and there were some elk hunters that were finishing up their hunt that day, and our plan was to just kind of chill out in the morning, do anything that needs done around camp. We were
kind of get moved in.
Yeah, exactly. And we were just going to go out and kind of see a couple things, not really dive way into everything, but do a little bit of glassing and just kind of see the property a little bit the first evening. And honestly, on the way out there, I thought him and I were going to kind of be a little bit more separate, and this isn't any reason other than he wanted to hunt with me, but the whole time we were together. It was actually
cool though.
Yeah, it was really nice.
Made for a nice memory, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Oh, for
Absolutely.
sure. And I was expecting it to be more split up and then like kind of towards the end come back together and hunt together, but from the first evening we hunted together the entire time, and it was really, really sweet.
So we went out the first evening and just do a little bit of glassing, and that very first night we saw a pretty good mule deer buck.
Yeah, and it was honestly one that I was really hoping he was going to get a shot at, and he wouldn't. Neither one of us even picked up a gun the first day, and
they were in the truck unloaded the whole time.
Yeah, like we were just so excited to get out there and start glassing and seeing stuff. We didn't even put any thought into killing something yet.
Yeah, it was just let's go enjoy something we've never seen before. Enjoy the mountains, enjoy the scenery, enjoy the people you're with.
Yeah.
And Everything else is secondary at that point.
So neither of you guys have been on a mule deer hunt, correct? You've hunted in areas that had mule deer, but you weren't really targeting
Correct.
mule deer.
Yes, never really went out just for the sole purpose of shooting mule deer.
Gotcha.
So, and
Yeah, the first night we saw a buck that I wanted him to shoot because Dad loves just goofy stuff that doesn't actually look like what it's supposed to look like.
Yeah, you've got a whole pile in a milk crate of just like weird whitetail from over the years.
Ugly.
Yeah.
Just like ugly.
And one of the first good bucks we saw a bunch of bucks. Like, I was not expecting to see the volume of game that we saw. It was just anytime you pulled your binoculars up, you didn't have to look for more than 3 minutes and you found mule deer. They were everywhere. And it was right at the very end of the evening, last light. We kind of peeked over the edge of this knoll, and this sky-high buck. It was wicked high. And mule deer are a lot wider than whitetails, so
Yeah.
a 22-inch mule deer is like a 15, 16-inch whitetail. And this muley that we saw, I would be surprised if it was 15 inches wide. It went straight up, but it was so freaking tall. It was unbelievable. And I was like, that is the perfect buck for Dad to shoot. But like I said, neither one of us had guns, so we just were watching it, glassing it, and kind of followed it around, and weren't really stalking it, but just kind of keeping an eye on it and actually walking farther away from our guns and making sure that we didn't shoot it. But it was really cool to see.
But it was really kind of our just get oriented with the ranch kind of night, So, albeit Skeeter was with us that night, he would have been more than happy to see us shoot something that first night. He would,
Oh yeah.
And they were actually apologizing because what did we see? Maybe a half a dozen bucks that first night.
Yeah.
That were, decent, but I'm not counting like little spike horns, but a half a dozen deer that looked like mule deer.
Yeah.
And Skeeter's like, man, it's, ever since that bad snow 2 years ago, we just don't have the game we used to have. And, Whitey and I being our first time out there, we're like,
you used to have more
how
than
much
this?
more do you need? I mean,
Yeah.
Right?
We were out here a total of 15 minutes before we were trying to, get a spotting scope on a couple to see just how nice they really were, so it,
So about how far can you see out there and see a mule deer without glass and be like, that's worth looking at?
without any glass?
Yeah. Like, is that something you're doing, or I'm
can
totally
see them. You can for sure see them. If you look out, you can pick them out once you know what you're looking for. Because at first, you don't know what you're looking for through it's completely different terrain for us. It's not even just like the mountainous terrain, but the background and what the vegetation is and stuff. Like, it's all sagebrush. There was pockets of thicker brush, but it was mostly sage that you were looking out at. And when you first see that stuff and it's completely new to you, you don't have the eye to pick stuff out of it. And once you know what you're looking for, you can, without glass, you can pick stuff out pretty easily at a pretty good distance. And even if it's kind of out in the open in a meadow, you can look damn near a mile pick something out.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Yep.
But you can't say,
generally you're
that's
gonna
a
need
good
glass.
buck at a mile.
You're going to need, you're good. I've never been a big spotting scope guy. Just the types of hunting that I've done, everything is within 300 or 400 yards. And to me, a spotting scope was just always extra weight, or it was something that was going to let me look at an animal that I can't even go after, because the terrain that I was hunting, you just didn't take off and walk 2 miles across it, This terrain here, you want a spotting scope. You want good glass. You want a spotting scope. You'll find stuff with a set of binoculars, and you'll be like, yeah, that's a pretty good buck, but do we really want to chase it? So you'll want to throw your spotting scope on it, and now you can really get a pretty good feel for, is that a 4x4? Is it a 3x4? Does it have any junk on it? Does it have eye guards? Stuff like that.
So is that kind of the method you guys took? Was we're going to look with binoculars quick and then use the spotting scope if there's something that kind of trips your trigger?
Yeah, once you put your binos on something, and right away in your binos, even at 1,000 yards or more, you can say, okay, that's something I want a better look at. And then at that point, you pull your spotter out and figure out, okay,
and you dial right in on.
Yeah, and figure out, is this something that we need to make a plan on and get after?
So.
Oh, and the first night we did see, before Dad saw that, well, we all saw that really tall buck. We saw a really nice buck off of this one point that we were glassing, and we were actually at that point just kind of looking out at this one mountain where there's a lot of elk at. And there were elk hunters in camp that were finishing up their hunt, and there were some elk hunters coming in with us. So we were just kind of glassing and seeing if we could find some elk to get these hunters on. And while we're standing there glassing this mountain, the one kid, Clay, happened to look off to our left, and about 1,000 yards down there walking across this meadow, he's like, "Oh shit, that's a good muley down there." So we're all like, "Oh." We weren't even.
Mule deer.
We forgot we were.
That's right.
mule
That's what we're here for.
yeah, we forgot we were mule deer hunting. So we put the glass on that, and he pulled his spot and scope out. He's like, "That's a good buck down there. Like, that's something that you guys should probably get after." And we went down and tried to make a little bit of a move on it, but he disappeared. We never saw him again, and it was.
He literally rolled into a little bowl that we could see from where we were glassing. But once we gave up elevation and got down on his level and tried to move back up into him and came up on top of that bowl to look down into it, I mean, from where we had initially glassed it, you thought, all we got to do is roll up there and we've got him. He can't go anywhere.
No.
And he just evaporated. We
So-
got in there and he just disappeared. I don't know if he must have just laid down and laid down
And we
tight.
saw a ton of deer in there that we didn't see from where we were glassing because we were so focused on him, but we just got up there and never found
He
him.
just disappeared.
Now, in hindsight, and I don't even know if this is legal to do this, but because I don't know. But do you guys think you would have benefited from leaving somebody at the original spot to stay on it, and then send somebody
that
on a
is
stalk?
definitely a doable plan.
Okay.
And we
Because
actually
I don't know if you can communicate
You're allowed to-
electronically.
you not electronically. You can communicate with hand signals, so you
Okay.
can glass back and forth to each other, and use hand signals, and we didn't do that, but it but it definitely could have been something.
So I just out of
and the fact
curiosity
that we
with-
were hunting with 4 people, it was me, Dad, Skeeter, and Gary the whole time. We could have easily hunted that way, and I mean, we didn't need to. We were more than effective the way we were hunting, but I could definitely see the benefit of hunting like that and leaving somebody to keep eyes on something and then signal back and forth like, "Hey, you're getting close, go left, go right." And like I said, we didn't need to do it, but it's definitely, I think it would be a very fun way to hunt.
Yeah, without a doubt.
You have to be pretty in tune with your partner to make sure you're getting the right message relayed across.
Yeah, you got to rehearse that one back at camp a little bit.
Tom and I have like almost, I don't know if it's like brotherly intuition, but we've used hand signals for turkey hunting, and we're absolutely spot on through the whole thing.
Yeah, I'm sure you guys aren't 1,000 yards away from each
No,
other.
we were about 30. But I mean, we were given hand signals like, we were sitting on a tree and I was giving hand signals on the inside of my leg because the birds were to my left and Tom's over on this side. And I'm giving him hand signals down here, and he was able to interpret
Key right
everything.
in on it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so
Yeah, so our first night worked out, I mean, really good. We got a deer that we really were hoping to, get a crack at. One ugly buck that would have been more than happy to settle for.
And several others that were nice bucks.
Yeah.
Not no giants, but it was definitely really relieving getting out there and not knowing what to expect. Like, obviously we've seen pictures of stuff, but until you get out there, you never really know what you're getting into.
well, and time of year and year to year.
Yeah, for sure.
Even though last year they killed X amount of deer that you really liked, it could be totally different this year. So for you guys to get their first day seed
Or if
deer,
you're there earlier in the year as opposed to later in the year, like
Yeah.
we were, like we were the second to last hunt these guys were doing. They had already been hunting for several months. So
Yeah, and we were in like their early rut stage.
Okay.
So they weren't like full blown ruddy yet, but the bucks were getting ready. The does weren't. But if you could find yourself 5 or 6 does, just
There
pay
was
attention.
always
There was
bucks.
going to be a buck within 200 or 300 yards of them. You just needed to kind of wait it out and see what was there.
So we asked Frank before he left about this, and I just want to get your opinion on it too. So obviously all of us have hunted whitetails for a long, long time. We understand what the whitetail rut looks like. Especially now after witnessing it, what does the mule deer rut look like in comparison to a whitetail rut?
Nothing similar.
Yeah, it's
At least from at least what I saw in our 5 days, I didn't think there was anything similar to it other than the fact that bucks were chasing does.
I think the way that they kind of kept an eye on does was similar because, like you said, we were kind of just getting into the rut. The bucks were ready, the does weren't. And you would find bucks that were, younger bucks that were chasing, like you see a 4-point that's running a doe around and she's not having it. We saw some of that, and some of the bigger bucks we saw weren't chasing, but they were never far from does. They were keeping an eye on them, so I think it was similar in that aspect. But as far as like we talked about like scrapes and rubs and stuff, I didn't really see scrapes and rubs, and not just because they don't do it. I'm not saying they don't, but the terrain and stuff that we were in, there wasn't anything for them to make a scrape underneath. It was all low brush that they're not scraping underneath it. It was all knee-high sagebrush. So
yeah, or it was like an oak brush, or or a red brushy stuff that was just a real thick entanglement of things. But we didn't see a lot of like antler rubs or any of that.
No. I didn't see anything, because normally, like, if you walk into any red brush bush around here, there's all kinds of shoots everywhere that are coming up. Half of those shoots are rubbed to shit.
Yeah.
Out there, I didn't see any of that.
Yeah, I think I saw 1 or 2, and it was minimal. It wasn't.
We did see some bucks sparring, though.
Yeah,
a couple times.
Was it similar to like an elk, where like the elk kind of likes to keep a bunch of does, or like in that case cows, but like with mule deer, was it just like a bigger mule deer with like a few does with him that he kind of kept an eye on? And
maybe it was just the stage of the rut that we were at, but that was kind of more the impression I got was, if you, like I said, if you could find 4, 5, 6 does, or maybe there'd be a few does and a little yearling buck in there, if you'd pay attention to what was 200 yards away, that's where you'd find your better muleys.
Okay.
And he was just kind of like working the outskirts
just keeping
of it,
an eye on
him.
Just waiting for him to be ready.
They weren't panicky. Well,
they don't take off like whitetail either, do they?
No. They were comfortable. Like, even when you were moving, if you like moving past a group of deer that you didn't really have an interest in, they didn't just blow out and take off like a group of whitetails would. They were happy being able to see you. That was like a level of comfort there. It was,
and we kind of talked about that before I went out there when we had a podcast like leading up to this. And muleys are more of a sight animal than whitetails are, and I compared them to caribou.
Yeah,
because they know they can see a long way. If they can see you, they're a lot more comfortable.
Yep.
When they start having to rely on their other senses is when they will get weirded out.
Yeah, at least that's definitely what my take on our limited experience with them.
And it makes perfect sense
like
because
caribou hunting.
Yeah, because our whitetails around here, they can't see 1,000 yards at any given time. Out there, everywhere they're standing, they can see that far. So their sight is their first line of defense.
Yeah. So then we got into the first morning.
Yeah, and the first morning, if you're not a morning hunter, that style of hunting is the way to go.
Yeah, you probably don't even start till the sun's up, and you can do some spotting.
Because like the elk hunters would go out, way before light, so they could get out there, get set up, and everything. And Skeeter's joke was, "Yeah, the deer hunters don't get out until at least 9 o'clock," and we would get out earlier than that. But you're glassing, so you need to be able to see. And the other thing was, because of all like the mountains and hills and different guts and stuff, the muleys didn't like it in the shade. And the first morning we went out, they said, just keep an eye on the sunny areas. Once the sun starts to clear this mountain, look where the sun is. And you could glass the shade before the sun cleared, and you wouldn't find anything. Like, you would glass, nothing. As soon as the sun started to touch something, everything came to life. They just wanted to find that
curtain came
warm
up.
They
spot.
jumped right up on their feet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As soon as the sun hit, they were ready to go.
That must be their alarm clock or something. Like
I don't
sun's
know
out.
what it was, but it was like clockwork.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and you might be looking at something that's 300 yards from you, that you can see good in low light. You know, and you got it covered. And until that sun rolls into that little valley,
You won't see shit in there.
nothing seems to move. And then once that sun warms that valley up a little bit and hits it, they're
come like, okay, time to
come
go.
out from under whatever bush they were laying under or tree they were behind or whatever it was.
Mm-hmm.
And there you go.
Yeah, and you definitely had to stay in the glass at that point because you could look at something, you pan away for a couple seconds and pan back, there's 5 deer standing there.
Yep, that fast things change.
Yeah, and so right away, as soon as the sun started coming up, right up a couple hundred yards from us, a really nice buck came up out, and it was a buck that I bet 90% of the people out there would have shot. It was a really good buck, and again, we were standing there, no guns. Our guns were 100 yards away from us in the truck, and we were sitting out there glassing, and we still were just having a good time being out there and enjoying that moment, and it hadn't really set in yet that we were hunting. We were just out there having a good time, and we were watching this buck, and Dad kept joking. He's like, you guys are probably getting a little bit pissed at us because we're not even quote unquote hunting. We're just watching stuff and having a good time glassing. And this buck, we watched it for probably 40 minutes, and he came up out of this little draw, and he had probably 6 or 7 does with him. They all came up out of this little gut and worked right around this point that we were on and out of sight. And they were like, boy, that was a pretty good buck. Like, you think we should probably get a better look at him? And we're like, nah, he was a good buck.
There'll be more.
Yeah, we'll see more. Because the night before we had seen a bunch of bucks, and we're like, we definitely don't need to be in a hurry. Like, there's good animals out here.
As a guide, though, you want your client to get a buck as soon as possible because every day I don't want to say chances, but like every day that you pass a buck that your guide thinks you should shoot,
that's
he's
an
like,
opportunity.
Yeah, that's an
missed.
opportunity, and he's like, I want you guys to succeed.
And Skeeter and Gary, all them guys, they really want everybody to be successful.
Yeah.
You know, if you're not, it wears on them real quick.
Yeah.
You know.
So for you to pass deer that they're like, hey, you should shoot that deer.
And we tried telling them, and we must have said it a dozen times every day. It's not important. You know, we're enjoying the hunt. We're enjoying being here.
Yeah.
You know,
and it's probably very different for them because even we have seen it up in Alaska. People aren't like that when they're on a guided hunt. They're like, I'm paying my money.
I got to shoot something. I have to shoot something.
If I don't, I wasted my money.
Yeah,
right.
But we understand the other side of that, and we are truly just appreciating the hunt, and we don't have to kill something. We understand we paid for it, but
we paid for the experience.
Yeah, exactly.
We paid for the lodge. We paid for the people. We paid for the scenery, the transportation.
Yeah.
You know, you don't pay
for the animal.
Yeah, and you've brought that up a few times in the Alaska podcast.
Yeah.
About that, you're paying for an experience, and if you come into it
expecting an animal,
well, you almost need to come in there with the expectation that I'm paying for this experience, and a trophy at the end of it is a bonus.
Yeah.
Yes. If you want to guarantee it, go somewhere with a 12-foot high fence.
Yeah.
Yep. If you're truly going,
and most people don't grasp that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And ultimately, the people that enjoy the hunt are the ones that end up with the best experience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because they took advantage of everything else that was available to them. Like I said, so often we stopped looking for mule deer to look for elk, or maybe a herd of a herd of antelope came by.
Yeah, and we didn't have tags for them, but we don't get that
don't see that here.
opportunity around here to look at elk and antelope. So there might have been a nice muley right there. There's a 150-inch muley right there.
We just took
there's
30 minutes out eyeballing antelope.
Yeah.
Trying to see how good the bucks were in that group.
And especially in your guys' situation, you guys first day, like first evening, first morning, you were seeing bucks everywhere.
Already,
it kind of takes the pressure away a little bit and says, let's just enjoy this. Let's not rush through this and be done opening morning. Like it seems like it's, a whitetail in Pennsylvania, you see them one time, there's a good chance you never see them again.
Yeah.
Correct.
And when you're out there in the mountains and just rolling hills and plains and stuff, if you see a buck one day, there's a good chance that there's going to be more in the area.
We noticed just in the minimal experience 1 week, there's a lot of, points, and there's a valley here that rolls up into another valley onto a point. The whole circle around the top of this one particular point, it might take them a mile to go around that. Mm-hmm. So they come up out, like that buck the first morning. We watched him come up out of that little valley, and he started working around the backside of the top of the peak that we were on. And after about an hour and a half or so, I just walked over to see the direction that he went. I was like, maybe I'll get another look at him. And I walked 500 yards away from these guys just to go see. I didn't have my gun, and peeked up over the top of this hill, and he was right down around the other side of this point. And probably about another hour later, when we got back in the truck and moved to go glass another spot, we came around that point, and he had bedded up right on the other side of it. And it seemed like all week long, that's what we were seeing. If you saw him come up out of this gut and start working around this hilltop, that's where they live. They live on that hilltop.
And they just would keep making
They just make that circle.
1 mile circles. And if you didn't see him, it was because he probably just wasn't on his feet.
Yeah.
He was just laying down in a bush someplace or in a little thicket.
Yeah.
And but give it a little bit of time, and you'll catch him someplace close. Wherever you glassed him from the first time, you'll probably glass him from that spot again.
Yeah, if you see, you put eyes on a buck that you're like, oh, I really want to shoot that one, but you don't get the opportunity that day.
Don't panic.
Yeah, if you go camp on that same little ridge, odds are you're going to see him again. If you got 5 more days to work with, you're going to find that buck.
Yeah. Yeah, you might have to move from one ridge to the other to look across the
see him a little better
direction, but he's someplace close. He didn't just bolt out of the.
Yeah, whereas like whitetail around here, and I shouldn't even say, because like they're probably covering about the same amount of ground, but you can't see them around here.
Yeah,
they're in
way more cover here.
Yeah, and not even more cover, because there's a lot of cover for them out there, but just the terrain allows for more of a sight picture.
Yes,
you can't see as far and as wide, and what the amount of ground that you can see here is completely different out there.
Yeah, we're here in PA where we're at, to try to find even take like woodchuck hunters, they struggle to find places they can shoot 400 or 500 yards.
Yeah,
to shoot a woodchuck. Out there,
every shot you have, you can make it
ridge
500 yards
and turn it into a 1 mile shot if you wanted to.
Yeah.
So visibility to see your game, to see what you're trying to find is much, much better out there than here.
Yeah, for sure. So that brings us to the second evening, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, after the first morning into the second evening.
The second evening.
And we went back to where we saw that nice buck the first day, and because we really wanted to get a better look at it, because
maybe even really truly chase it this time.
Yeah, because we just saw it real quick, because like I said, we weren't really paying attention for muleys. We were looking for elk, and Clay saw it real quick and was like, that's a good buck, that's something that you guys should go after. And we're like, all right, we're gonna try to camp on that spot and try to make something happen with it, see this buck again. And we went back there, and we were glassing we actually glassed a few spots before that, saw several nice bucks. And the longer the hunt went on, and like I said, the longer, we're only a day and a half into it, there was literally zero pressure. Like, you kind of knew already, it's just a matter of, do I want to shoot it here?
When do I want to do it?
When do I feel like pulling the trigger? And that whole morning, Dad and I never picked up our guns, and they just kept making jokes like, what the fuck are you guys doing? Like, we've never had hunters that don't take their guns with, we're sitting there glassing for an hour, and
usually
guns are unloaded.
You got to unload that thing. We'll go for a walk. You can't have a bullet in the pipe. You got to get the pipe empty.
Yeah.
Not us. We didn't even have them in the chamber. There wasn't even anything in the magazine yet.
Yeah. So we go out to that point where we saw that buck, and we're glassing, and again we kept finding ourselves just looking for elk because we've never seen them, and we're looking across this valley, and I looked out and I saw a deer, and it was, I think I like made a point on Onyx. It was about 1,300 yards out from where we were at to where we first saw the deer, and we had been seeing a bunch of deer, just glassing them, and I saw this deer, and it was all by itself. And I was like, I bet that's a buck. It was far enough away that you couldn't really tell what it was through 8-power binoculars, but you could see antlers above its head. It was for sure a buck, and I was like, yeah, we should throw the spot and scope on that. And it wasn't far from where we had seen that nice buck that everyone was saying we should probably get after that. So Gary throws up his spotting scope. He's like, I think that's a good buck. We should probably make a move, get a better look at him. And so we did. We dropped down off the hill, and like I said, it was about 1,300 yards to where, looking back now and making points on Onyx just to kind of make the whole picture for myself. And we got down, and we were probably about 500 yards, and we start glassing, and it was so surprising to me, and it shouldn't surprise me because they live in this terrain all the time, but the way they use the terrain is insane, because we would start making a move on a deer, and this one in particular, and they would be in just the right spot where all you could see were their eyeballs. They would set up in just the right spot that you couldn't see their body. They would, they
like behind a bush or a tree or something.
No,
there would be a little
the terrain.
There would be like a 3-foot roll in a,
and they
come
would
up
sit
over
just
a hill.
down in that
Lay
little.
You were glassing, looking for antlers and ears.
Yeah. So we saw it from way up high, and then when we got down on his level, all you could see was his head. And we're trying to make a move on him to get a better look at him, to maybe get a shot on him, and all you could see was his head. And we get to a spot, and we see his rack, and he's super tall. We're like, okay, we definitely want to try to make a move on him, and maybe.
So did you load your gun at this point?
Yeah, I was saying, what happened where you're like, okay, now I think I want to try and shoot one?
My gun was not loaded at this point, but I did have it with you. I did have it with me. As soon as we made a move on it, I was like, okay, I should.
So put the camera down. We're gonna grab a rifle.
Yeah.
Nothing ever dies looking through a pair of binoculars.
Yeah. So I had the gun on my shoulder. I had my bullets in my pocket, and we're seeing it, but he wasn't giving us a good look because he was laying like right in. It was like one of those red brush. It wasn't red brush. I can't remember what it was. It was some berry. I can't remember what it was.
Was it like a huckleberry?
No, it was. I'm having a brain fart now.
Me too. Doesn't matter.
A berry bush.
Yeah,
it's similar to a red brush bush. It's kind of shaped like that. And he was laying like right in line with it, so you couldn't really make out the difference between his antlers and that bush, but you could tell that he, was good. But he was not moving. He was locked right on us. So.
Like when you say locked on us, he saw you?
He knew we were there.
Knew we were there.
For sure knew we were there.
He knew we were there.
And distance-wise, where are you guys at?
We were
at this
probably
point?
about 600 at this point.
So he's not concerned at 600
He's
yards.
not.
No, he's got us. He sees us. He knows we're there.
Yeah, as long as he can see us, he knows he's safe. Because he knows you're that far away, I have my exit plan, I'm good. You're that far away, I can watch you for a while. And
that's actually pretty interesting. Something like you don't a whitetail, if they pick you off, they're gone.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. It was super different. It was very surprising, and
and they'll pick you up from 1,500 yards away.
I guess
they see that little bit of movement, and then once they lock onto you, they never lose track of you.
So I meant to ask this earlier, but how in tune are you guys with like the wind direction when you're doing these stops?
Yeah, you definitely have to pay attention to that, because we've talked about it before, and Dad says it all the time, you can trick one sense. If they have you on one sense, they'll pay attention, but they're not going to tweak out. As soon as they get the second one, they're peacing.
Yeah.
So if they
Gotcha.
see you and smell you, you're fucked.
Yeah, you're done.
So the wind was it was in the perfect spot that no matter which way you went, it wasn't perfect for you. It was kind of always in his favor. And
Sounds like he knew exactly where he needed to be.
that's what I was saying with like the whole terrain thing. Not only was he in the perfect spot to hide himself, but he was also in the perfect spot with the wind. It was funneling right to him.
And he could literally, if he rolled off the hill from where he was one step away from being gone.
Yeah,
One
the whole
step.
time.
So as long as he was laying there, we had a chance. But if he just went one step below us, he was gone, and then Lord knows where he'd end up at that point.
Yeah, and Clay told us the first day, he said, you better keep your eyes on a mule deer. Because like with elk, they don't go terribly far. If you put your eyes on them, you're like, okay, that's where they're at. They're feeding right there. I'm going to move over here, make a move, and okay, they're still going to be in that same general area. He said the first day, if you put your eyes on a mule deer that you want, keep your eyes on him, because as soon as you lose sight of him, he will evaporate.
Wow.
I remember him saying that.
Yeah.
And that was early. Yeah, don't ever take your eyes off a mule deer.
Which you guys experienced that the first day with that
Yeah.
one.
yeah.
That
Yeah.
Literally,
We
you're
lost
like,
sight of
oh,
him
there
for-
he is. I'm
we
going to
lost
just
sight
dip
of him
down.
for 10 minutes, and he was gone. I mean, every other deer we wanted was still there.
Yeah.
You know, not that one, though.
Huh.
Yeah, so we were doing our best to keep the terrain in our favor so we could keep eyes on them. And we were trying to decide. We were standing, there was a cattle gate, and we're like, do we go right or do we go left? Because either way, we'll be able to see them, but the wind was kind of going back and forth. It was always kind of a little bit towards them. We're like, what's the better way to approach this? And we were kind of going back and forth. I was like, left. I think we need to go left. And
That kept us moving uphill.
yeah. And Gary was like, I think you're right. If we stay uphill, we'll keep a good vantage point on them. And it was slightly better for the wind. Not much. And the way the wind was, it could have changed at any second and blown right in his face.
One swirl, and it's different.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Especially with all those hills and different terrain, the wind can change so easily.
Yeah,
So
thermals are probably a really big key with your wind in
Can be.
terrain like that.
Absolutely can be.
yeah. So we start making the move on them. We make our final decision. We're going to go this way. And all four of us are still moving together. And we finally get like a good look at them. And I was like, I think this is the one.
I think I should put some bullets in my
Yeah,
gun.
and at that point, I finally did load my gun. I was like, this is...
The sound of brass on steel.
Yeah, I was like, this is the deer that I want. I'm ready to pull the trigger on this one. So Dad and Skeeter just kind of tucked themselves down in the sagebrush, and Gary and I, because at that point I pulled up on him, and he was quartering super hard. Like I almost only saw his ass, and then he kind of was like turned back, just looking at us. He was facing away from us with his body, but his head was turned back towards us.
Is he on his feet at this point?
No, he was still laying down
still
at
laying
this
down.
point.
Okay.
So Dad and Skeeter just kind of tucked down into the sagebrush, and me and Gary moved up because I wasn't comfortable with the shot. I was like, I don't have a good look at his vitals. I could sneak one next to his spine and hope I get into what I need.
That's
I was
not
like,
what you're about, though.
no,
You
and
know.
I was like, we need to move to get a better look at him. So they tucked down. Gary and I started working a little bit.
What's the distance you're at this point?
We were probably about 400 at that point.
And that's in your wheelhouse of what you've been practicing for, correct?
I had only shot like 300, but the way I was shooting at 3, I was like, I'll shoot to 4. I like 354. Like if I had to push to 4, I would have, but I would not have gone. That's not the shot I was looking for.
So you were basically looking for like 300.
Yeah.
Would push to 4, but 400 was your absolute max.
Yes.
So you gotta close that gap, I guess.
So Gary and I start making a little bit of a move to get a better look at his vitals, and at that point he stood up. And I'll talk more on this later when we talk about Dad's buck, but we split up, and that's when he stood up. and they sat down into the brush so they weren't like up and visible and moving, but still we had moved away from them, and he stood up at that point. And
It's almost like he knew something was different.
Yeah.
Like, I saw 4 bodies. I see 2. Something.
Well, he was seeing a unit move.
yeah,
Now the unit split.
yeah.
So now he's like, something got him like, I better be ready.
Yeah, and he didn't move. He just stood up. And as Gary and I started working, I threw the gun up. I was like, I still don't have a good look. And we kept moving a little bit, and we got inside of 300, which was perfect.
Yeah,
I was
now you're in your
super comfortable.
wheelhouse.
I was like, as soon as he shows me his vitals, I'm good to go. And we moved a little bit more, got set up, and I threw my gun up on the shooting sticks, and he was locked right on us. Like, he knew we were there, and he was definitely getting more nervous because of the split, and that's why he stood up. And I threw the gun up, and he was still quartering pretty hard away, but I was comfortable with the shot. Settled in, touched the trigger off, and it was pretty close to last light. We probably had 20 minutes of light left. And when I shot, it kind of bucked me out of the scope, and I didn't get a great look at how he reacted, but I got back in the scope, and it looked like he kind of buckled a little bit. And
So he was in the same area after the shot. By the time you got back into your scope, he was still in that vicinity.
yes.
Bolted though.
But you've seen videos of mule deer, how they run. They like prance,
Like gallop.
they bounce.
Yeah,
They
bounce is a
jump.
good word.
He bolted just like any whitetail
Yeah,
bolts
he
when they're hit.
ran like a whitetail. Yeah, he was
Tail-
all 4
tail
legs
down,
pumping.
bolting.
Yeah. So that made me feel good. And as soon as I touched off, I was like, I kind of felt a little bit back, but I wasn't sure. And I saw him running. I got back in the scope, saw him running. And the way I thought I saw him react, I was like, okay, I think he's hit well. And he was running like a mortally wounded whitetail, and that's what I have to, that's my experience, so that's what I relate back to. And he ran down, and like we said, with the terrain, I didn't see him for long before he bailed into where we couldn't see him. And like we've talked about a million times.
Now the doubt sets in.
Yeah, if you don't... I had the slightest doubt that I was a little bit back, and I was like, fuck. I didn't see him die.
It's over.
This isn't good.
Now you're a foot back.
Yeah, everything's bad. I shot him in the ass. So this deer's getting away. I'm the asshole now.
It's funny how your brain does that to you because
Immediately.
you're trained so hard to be like, you want to watch them fall.
Yep.
And if they don't, your brain just creates every negative scenario possible.
And he was shooting a 338, 225 grain Barnes X bullet. I mean, it wasn't like he was underpowered.
Yeah, it should have knocked him over.
I mean, it had
Yeah.
everything he needed to plant the thing.
yeah, so
Yeah.
you're just probably riddled with doubt.
Everything's bad in my mind. And we start walking towards where he was, and Dad and Gary kind of stayed up to my left, and me and Skeeter were working more towards where I had shot. And the way things are, like, you know how it is when you look across a field, it's tough to tell where exactly you shot
because a
something.
field looks, everything's the same. It's not like you can say he went by that tree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's he went by
this-
that bit of stage.
Yeah.
No,
It's
every
all the
sage
same.
bush is the same.
So we're
Yeah.
like kind of working towards it, and it's in this little valley, and my mind is, let's just go get on some blood. And Dad and Gary are working more towards kind of where the deer went. And Dad keeps throwing his binoculars up, and we're probably almost 100 yards apart at this point. And he turned to Gary. He's like, there he is. And I just barely, I was like, is he down? And he's like,
You pulled the old Luke Bryan.
Yeah, I
is he
did too.
down?
I did
Is
hard.
he down?
he's like, yeah, he's down. I was like, is his head down? Is he dead? He's like, oh yeah, he's done. I was like, let's fucking go. It
So
was,
and then it's like all that doubt's just like it was
yeah.
never there.
Yeah,
You're like,
I knew
it.
yeah,
I knew it
was
the whole
rock solid.
time.
Yeah, it was super cool. So we get up to him, and he was great buck. I can't wait to post the pictures of him, and you guys have seen it was awesome. He was super tall.
That's your first mule deer.
Yeah,
You know.
yeah.
That's, I mean, your first out of state deer, really. I mean, in
a long time.
a long time, yeah.
4 years. I think the last time I shot an out of state deer was in North Carolina in
But
2021.
I mean, first mule deer ever.
You shot a whitetail out in Nebraska.
That was after.
In New York.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
Okay, yeah, but okay. So mule deer. Let's just cut it back.
Yeah, first
mule deer.
Yeah, I was as soon as he said he was down, I was like through the roof. I was so excited. And we start walking up to him. I got a little close. I didn't even go like towards where he was looking. I went right to him. I was like, "Where is it?" Like pointed out to me.
Because it was funny when as Gary and I were working, because him and Skeeter went to where the side of this little sharp cut.
They went to the crime
scene. They went to
scene.
the crime scene, try to find some blood, and kind of follow the path that the deer went. Gary and I just chose the other side of the ravine,
And it was
where
a super sharp ravine.
so
like
we could
across
see
the whole
down
ravine
into
was
it and
100
over
yards.
to the side that the deer was running down.
Okay.
Like picture the gorge kind of behind Grandma and Grandpa's, how it drops really sharp.
Uh-huh.
That's how it was, and we were only across the ridge was 100 yards. It was super
It was just
sharp.
real sharp. And as Gary and I were working down there, as luck would have it, I kind of looked down along the bottom edge of it, and my eye caught this little off-white patch. I mean, it wasn't any bigger than half of your hand.
Part of his ass.
No, it was a patch of white up by his head.
Oh, okay.
And my eye caught that for some reason, and I looked at it, and I threw the binoculars up, and all I could see was that white patch in his horns.
You didn't make him like struggle a little bit.
No, he was pretty
I could-
kind
could-
to me.
You should have just made him follow the blood trail down.
Just walking up there.
Oddly enough,
It did
I don't
bleed.
think we never found any blood.
Yeah.
Oh,
So if he didn't see it, we would have had a hell of a time from the shot to that deer because, and honestly, we didn't look that hard after we found it.
yeah,
Then
once
we
you
got
find
up to it, and him and I were both like, let's see what kind of blood trail it was, and we tracked back maybe 20 yards, no blood.
No blood whatsoever.
so where did your shot end up going in?
It was slightly back, but
It
honestly,
exited just on the front side of the opposite shoulder.
So
Yeah.
really, you had a perfect
because
placement.
he was quartering away, I went in like just in front of his hind quarter, and I went up through everything and came out literally right in his armpit. So it was the perfect shot.
Yeah.
For that situation. I feel that sounds about perfect.
No, it was actually
That
well.
literally takes out everything.
Everything, yeah.
Yeah.
Guts,
Yeah, you got
liver,
the-
lungs.
He
everything was
bolted
cooked.
100 yards, but was
He was dead
on his
before
feet.
he
On his
started
feet.
walking.
yeah. So, and then the beauty of this ranch really pays off at this point
Yeah.
because Skeeter says, "Well, there's a road just down below us, a few hundred yards," and he was able to walk back to the truck, drive around, and we got to drag him down that creek bottom for 200 yards.
it was
So
a
you're
downhill.
not packing them out.
No,
No.
it was because
No
it's a
reason
cattle ranch. There's
They've got-
trails all over the place because they need to get to the cattle.
Yep.
And
And
so
they got
Skeeter just drove.
water tanks and
Yeah.
all kinds of stuff everywhere.
Yeah, so he drove right down, and it was maybe a 250-yard drag, maybe.
All
Oh
But
man,
it
he
was
really
all
made you guys
downhill,
struggle.
right in this river bottom. It wasn't a river bottom. It was kind of like a little drainage.
Yep.
And it was the bottom of the drainage was just wide enough for the deer's body to fit, and there was no sage in the very bottom. So Dad and I were walking in the sage, pulling on his antlers, and he was just in a nice smooth mud bottom.
Your guides had to love that because they're probably used to having to drag it out.
Oh, yeah,
gut it
well,
But
every
as soon
day.
as we grabbed a hold of it, they're like, "Oh," we're like, "No, we got it."
This is part of the hunt.
Yeah.
Did you gut your own deer?
That's funny you say that. Yeah, shut the fuck up. No, I get back on this. Just
Oh
wait.
yeah, here we go.
Because of the way everything happened, and because Dad and I were so unprepared every time we started glassing, I didn't have a pack. Dad didn't have a pack.
Gary
Oh,
did
forgot my
didn't
knife.
have nobody.
Nobody. We were the four most unprepared hunters on the planet.
So
All
actually,
we had was one gun with some bullets.
so
We had
Our
and Gary had a shitty little pocket knife.
my buddy Keith, I don't know if you've met Keith, maybe once or twice up at Morrison, but he is very superstitious. And he believes that if he brings a knife into the woods, he won't kill a deer. So he thinks if he's too prepared to gut something and take it out, he won't kill. So he refuses to bring a knife. So if he shoots, then he has to come all the way back out. And the stuff he hunts is like cattail swamps.
Yeah.
So he will trek back through all those cattail swamps, back to his Subaru, get his knife, and then come back
to get it.
because he is so superstitious that he believes if I have a knife, I'm too prepared, and it messes up his juju.
Yeah. No, it was hilarious. We had no rope. No, I mean,
we had
nothing.
Nothing. We had a gun and bullets.
All who have guided in their past life, hunted forever, and nobody was prepared to do anything once a deer was shot.
Everyone was just like, we're gonna kill it, and who knows what happens after that.
Yeah, so, you've got 4 people that should be very prepared.
Yes. Everybody here knows exactly what it takes to be prepared.
You said we have 4 guides.
Yeah. Right.
And nobody has a knife.
And nobody's got a knife.
But yeah, Gary had just a shitty little pocket knife, and he starts gutting the deer. I was like, Gary, like, come on, like.
Nick's gonna give me shit for this.
I even made a comment. I didn't say anything about you, but I was like, I think this is the first time since I was 10 years old since somebody has gutted my deer. And he's like, oh, well, I'm happy to do it. I was like, well, you're not doing it again. So it was really funny.
The anatomy on a mule deer is much different from a whitetail, so I could see why maybe just
I had to watch it once.
Whatever you got to tell yourself, Frank.
Yeah. I got the old spiel with my grandpa. I'm going to do this one time.
Yeah.
You better watch close.
I feel like everyone that is serious about hunting has gotten that talk. Like, I'm showing you one time.
Pay attention.
It's part of the process. I do offer it. We've talked about it many times. I offer it to everybody. Before I do this, does anybody want to gut it?
Yep.
Nobody ever jumps on that.
Does anybody need the experience?
So I can't wait to give my kid that speech when he or she's 10. Hey, you're going to do this one time. Because if I'm going to have a kid that hunts, they're going to gut their own deer.
Oh God, yeah. So yeah, that's where we ended up, and Skeeter came. He went and got the vehicle, pulled it down to the road. He walked up and was like, "Yep, I'm right down here." We drug it down, loaded it up, and it was this. Gary's got this little Jeep, and as you know, there's no beds on Jeeps.
I know. I used to drive one.
Yeah, so we loaded this deer in the back of the Jeep, and it didn't fit well, and. Because it's a cattle ranch, there's gates that you have to open and close all the time. And Dad got out to open this one gate, and I went to get out to help him. And because this deer did not fit in the back, I went to get out, and its antlers were like hooked in my bino harness. I was trying to get out, and I'm like, I'm stuck. And Skeeter's like trying to pull the antlers out of my bino harness. And...
They were stuck up in the roof of all the foam insulation and stuff.
It was like Tommy Boy with the mule deer in the back.
That's exactly what it was like.
Exactly what it was like. It was kind of comical, actually.
Yeah,
but it just added to the experience. I mean,
absolutely.
This hunt.
This is by far my favorite hunt I've ever been on, hands down.
It's easy, it's fun, good people.
The people you're with makes everything.
Oh God, yeah.
Does. And you could make this hunt as hard and grueling as you wanted.
You don't need to.
But you don't need to. You can just make this hunt fun and enjoyable and turn it into a really good experience.
Yeah.
And you're gonna see critters.
Yeah.
You'll see stuff that you're not hunting, and you'll have fun watching it and all that kind of stuff.
I think that's important to be able to just enjoy the experience when you're on a hunt.
Yeah, sometimes you have to take a step back and realize what you're doing. It's not just about pulling the trigger. You need to take in the full scope of everything. 90% of the pictures that I took were just of mountains and different things.
Landscapes.
Stuff that we don't see. And
I remember working the booth with you down in Harrisburg and talking to people, potential clients, and they ask for success rates. In the past we were roughly around 80, and for opportunity, I guess you have to call it opportunity. And brown bear was nearly 100% opportunity. But I had a guy that said, well, if you can't guarantee me something, what am I spending the money for?
Right.
And I'm like, and I'm trying to be, customer service, trying to be nice, but like in my head, I'm like, if you want to guarantee it, go to a ranch that has high fence, 12-foot high fences that you
tell them what you want, they'll bring it in.
Yeah. I'm like, you're going on a hunt, and it's just, you're not paying. Like, I think a lot of people forget that you're not paying for an animal. Right. You're paying for lodging. Hunt. You're paying for the fuel for the boat. You're paying for your guide. Yes. There's the you're paying for a tag separately. Your tag doesn't get included. The money that you're spending on a hunt is going towards your lodging, your food at camp, your
fuel to get you moved around.
Yeah, you're not paying for an animal.
Possibly permits to be on the land.
And I think a lot of people forget that when they do those sort of hunts.
Well, unfortunately, we've all been spoiled a little bit, myself included. We watch some of these hunting shows, and in 30 minutes you watch 4 people kill Boone and Crockett whitetails, and you don't see all the footage that got left on the floor.
Yeah. The persona that they put out is that this is easy. You're out here to shoot.
Yeah. So, and we really do need to take a step back sometimes and remember what we're doing here. We're enjoying the outdoors. We're enjoying the hunt, and with a little bit of luck, things will go our way. We'll end up being successful on that hunt.
Yeah.
And obviously there are certain hunts and certain situations where those success rates go way up.
Yeah, you do a Canada black bear hunt versus a sheep hunt,
a Pennsylvania black bear hunt. No, so we had a pretty good night that night.
Yeah,
Cat there, Whitey there, he shot his first mule deer, real good mule deer. Everybody's pretty happy with it, and actually at that point in time, we later learned that
it was the best one shot
that year so far. And
little notch in the belt.
Yeah, they didn't say it at the time, but we found out later.
And to put things into perspective, it's not like we were running around seeing 190, 200.
You guys weren't in the Wasatch,
right?
Yeah.
Yes, we were seeing good, solid, 160, 170 mule deer, some 150s, stuff like that.
Just good representation of what a mule deer.
Representation of a white or of a mule deer, correct? So. Obviously there were smaller ones that a lot of people would shoot. They look nice, and they do kill some big mule deer out there from time to time. But yeah, just to kind of put that all into perspective. Like I said, for us, they were great mule deer. Yeah. For mule deer hunters, they were okay mule deer.
I mean, you're talking your first mule deer ever, your first trip to hunt mule deer. You come out of there with something,
and it landed right where we were hoping.
Yes,
which is where.
In that 160, 170 range.
Okay.
Definitely north of 150. And that's right where we ended up at. We had
some polls earlier in the week before we did this episode. People were guessing, inches wise, and we were right around. I think Mike was right around like 154 and 3/8.
Yeah. We haven't measured them.
We haven't.
Either one yet. So.
And as soon as we get them back, because they're still out in Colorado right now until Skeeter gets back. And as soon as they get back, the first thing I'm doing is putting a tape on both of them and
seeing exactly where they land.
Yeah.
So I do have a question.
Do you have a good idea of out of your two who's is going to score better?
Oh, it's Dad for sure. He wins.
I don't know because mine just has width.
Yeah, you do it, but they're both tall. But I got both forks. You're missing a fork.
Missing a fork. We did both end up with eye guards.
Yeah, we'll get to yours. We'll get to yours. We're not there yet.
I do have to ask before we get off of your deer. Did you get to eat any at camp?
No, we didn't.
Really?
No, we did not.
Well, we didn't process it at camp. They have a processor there, and we didn't. Since we flew out, we didn't bring anything to like package it or anything like that. So we just took it down to the butcher.
So they basically their program there is, as hunters come through and they're successful. They take, whether it's an elk, an antelope, a mule deer, whatever they shoot. There are actually some whitetail on the farm as well. Mm-hmm. Whatever you shoot goes to a local butcher, and they process it for you. If you brought all your stuff, you can process it there.
Yeah, our buddy that was out there right before us, he drove out. He brought a freezer. He brought a vacuum packer. He had everything there to fully process his own deer. Yeah. Since we flew out, we obviously weren't bringing that shit.
And we weren't going to start bucking the system. It's like, this is your program. We're out here. Thank you for having us. We're going to run with the program.
Now, and so something I've heard in the past from people that have done a lot of mule deer hunting, especially my grandfather, everybody says that they don't taste very good because they have a lot of sage flavor. But my opinion, when we do breakfast sausage, we buy extra sage for the breakfast sausage. So I'm like, wait, this sounds like primo.
We're going to find out here in a few more days. Skeeter's bringing everything back. The butcher, and that's the other thing. The butcher takes care of caping it for you, prepping the skull and skull plate and everything, so it's safe to bring back across, the lines and cleaning it up and all that kind of stuff.
So is he just sending like chunks of meat, or does he turn it to burger? Or?
We had Whitey's. We just had him chunk it up so that we could finish processing it the way we wanted it processed here at home.
Mm-hmm.
The one that I had done, for my deer, I told him just do whatever your standard cut is, and then we'll divvy that one up amongst anybody who wanted some. They were free to.
Yeah, everybody that was in camp at that point, Dad said, if you want some,
you're welcome to it.
Have at it. So he, had the butcher do steaks, roast, grinds, the whole.
This better not turn into bear fat where we don't actually get to try it.
I promise you will get some.
You'll get to try some.
I can say that because Austin's not here tonight.
And from what we're told, typically the mule deer that come off this particular ranch out of this area eat pretty decent.
Because it's a cattle ranch and they have it set up for cattle to graze and stuff, the mule deer are grazing on basically the same thing the cattle are. So,
and not that they won't eat some of them other twigs and rocks and crap.
The biggest thing I always heard people complaining about is they're really sagey. But when we do our breakfast, for me, it was like we add extra sage to our breakfast sausage. So, like, to me, that sounds like almost like, wait, so I can just get a little extra sage in my steaks? And I'm like, that sounds like a win.
Don't even have to season it. It's pre-seasoned.
So day and a half in, and we already got a successful hunt on our hands. And
what was the celebration like? So you get back to camp, you got your mule deer. That night had to be.
No, it was really tame.
Really?
Yeah.
No big drunk fest.
No whiskey, nothing?
Nope. No. We didn't have a single drop of alcohol the whole time we were out there.
No.
Oh, okay.
No, all the guys in camp, I mean, they're all very professional when it comes to that. And there's other hunters in camp, and they might have a beer or some whiskey or whatever. And everybody's okay with it. But like Skeeter and Gary and Clay and Travis, the other guides there, business is business. And there's a time and a place for it.
You've mentioned that in Alaska, where you guys...
Same way I run my camp in Alaska.
As a guide, you guys don't do any drinking.
No drinking.
Till the hunt's over, you're locked in.
Yep. So, and that's just the way it is. Nothing against it. Got a drink right now.
Yeah. We have three bottles of whiskey on the table and plenty of bush lights.
Not against it.
Yeah.
Just a time and a place.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was pretty chill. Obviously there were all the congratulations, happy for you, all that stuff. But there was no big party, but everyone was happy. Skeeter and Gary were super thrilled that someone finally grabbed a gun out of the truck, and
they're probably starting to wonder.
Even if we didn't have a knife.
Yeah. No, it was a great way to end that day, and everyone had a great time. It was super exciting.
So the next morning rolls around, and
bright and early, 9 o'clock.
Bright and early, sun's up. Finished your cup of coffee,
and we were getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning and doing
seeing
whatever.
the elk hunters off.
Yeah, we would watch them go out the door, and we were still sitting there watching the morning news.
And we head back up to. Actually, we went right to our favorite glassing spot that morning.
Yep.
And it was half of what made it our favorite glassing spot is one, we just always saw mule deer from it. We could watch a mountain across the one drainage for elk to kind of help out the elk hunters if possible. And
we could kind of look all the way across the BLM back onto the ranch and see if there were any elk moving across over to the other elk hunters.
Just really let us see a lot of terrain from where we were at. And we sat there, and again, we saw half a dozen bucks that morning.
Yep.
Scattered about, some that were close enough to go after if we wanted to bail off the hill and go after.
Actually, I think it was that morning that we saw there was a couple hunters that were hunting the BLM. They weren't part of our group.
Oh, they were coming in on horseback.
Yeah, they were coming in on horseback, and it was super cool to watch. They came in, and we saw them set up on this one ridge, and we saw them set up, and then we were kind of paying attention somewhere else. And we thought we heard a shot, so we turned around and looked back at them, and they had just shot something. And so we were literally watching, and we started glassing around trying to find what they had taken a shot at, and we saw some muleys jumping, and we watched this one muley that was very clearly hit, and it went down into some red brush, and the one they kind of split up. The hunter came down and
they left the spotter back.
Yeah, they left a spotter back to watch. So we were almost a mile away, and it was just really cool to glass them and watch what they were doing and how they were going after this.
Truly like a fly on the wall for
literally,
watching this.
Exactly.
Now, and I don't think they ever got that muley because they went into that pile of red brush that muley went into, and there was 2 more shots fired in there.
Yeah.
And then you saw the muley bail out the other side of the ravine.
Yeah.
And I
think they went
around.
after it a little too fast because when we were glassing it looked like it was hit hard. If they would have just backed off and
let it
do its thing, they would have found it right there. But they went in almost immediately.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if they would have given a little time, I think they would have got it much easier.
Yeah.
So that morning kind of went off with just a bunch of glassing and seeing some critters, and never really pursued anything that morning.
No,
Did you have a gun
No,
with you?
he never got his gun
Never took
out.
the gun out of the truck.
Yep, it stayed in the truck
We
the whole
drove to
time.
that glassing point and
Wandered around.
walked up and down the couple of pieces of the ridge and changed elevation and glassed and just
Never a gun was found.
Yep. And then that what took us into the next evening, and I think that was the first evening that we didn't see an animal to shoot.
Yeah.
That we thought was worthy of
Yeah.
even
Grabbing
taking
your
us-
gun.
No, but
Well, not that.
No, like the morning we saw some nice mule deer at a distance, and
Yeah.
and some, but
And it was like, okay, make a mental note of where he's at.
pay attention to that. That one's over there on that mountain. There's actually 2 over on that mountain. Maybe tomorrow we'll go to that mountain and start glassing.
Try to
and
find that deer.
Try
and
to
make
find
a
that
move.
deer. And so it was kind of just making mental notes of where we were seeing decent bucks. And then that evening we went out, and we never really saw a buck that
Was worthy of
Even
making
making a
that
mental
mental
note.
note. It was. We saw
Saw
a lot
deer.
of deer. A lot of deer.
A lot of deer. No shortage of deer. Just didn't see anything that we felt like, that's something we need to be remembering, logging into our.
So like probably like in that like 130-ish range maybe.
No, not even that.
Yeah,
okay.
they were
Yeah,
lots
just-
of small.
So not even close.
Yeah, no, nothing even close. It was just terrible.
Just a heck of a time. We
Yeah,
just
it was
weren't
just
enjoying
like,
ourselves.
oh
Probably
my God.
contemplating going home at that point.
Exactly.
It was just like, why did we even come out here?
Yeah.
So, so that night ended up pretty uneventful. Then the next morning we came out and we went to a spot we hadn't glassed from yet.
Mm-hmm.
And it was kind of high. You had to get up, we kind of drove, and then we had to hike up a few hundred yards to get up on top of this point. And I don't know, maybe 300 or 400 yard hike to get up to the top of it.
Yeah, it wasn't bad.
But yeah, it was comfortable.
But it was honestly, it was my favorite spot that we went the whole time. It was so pretty. I actually sent you guys a video, and I put a video on our Instagram story.
Everything was really steep underneath you. When you came around the backside and got up, everything just fell off.
You just felt like you're on the top of the world.
Yeah. And like you looked around and you could see every mountain all the way around you. Like it was just such a gorgeous spot to go up and sit in glass. And even if we immediately saw deer, but even if we didn't see anything, just that view was worth everything.
Yeah,
Like it was.
And as soon as we got up there, we looked down below us, and 150 yards from us was just
It was 132 yards.
nice 4x4, had eye guards on it as well. Just
Which I know you were after eye guards.
Yeah.
In a way.
I was in a way. I either wanted exactly what I wanted, or I wanted something really
Just
ugly.
shit.
It was just like I don't know. I guess I really didn't care. I mean, I had.
You were out there for the experience.
I was.
Yeah.
I was just enjoying it because in the end, I shot something right in the middle of all of it.
Yeah, and I mean, and you watched your son get his first mule deer, which has got to
was-
be
Yeah, it was great.
almost as good as you getting one,
It
I'm
was
sure.
actually, I enjoyed that more, because I got to watch it, and so. But as soon as we got up to look down 130 yards away, here's a really nice looking buck, and Gary and Skeeter like, that's a pretty good one. And we're looking at it like,
He
yeah,
did have a gun.
I did have a gun.
It was
that
not
time.
loaded.
That was,
but it-
that's good. That was my next
Wasn't loading
question.
it, but I did have a gun.
Oh, no, honestly, I did get really excited because as we started glassing it, Gary and Skeeter were both like, that's a pretty good buck.
Is this the
And-
one you told me about?
Oh, no,
The
no, no,
stock, or he was like, well,
No,
No, this is that.
Okay.
No.
not yet.
Is this the one you told me you later regretted passing?
No,
I didn't regret this one.
No, this one was we put eyes on it, and everyone's like, "That's a pretty good buck." Like, and he's like, "Just keep your eyes on it." And he opens his bolt. He puts one in the chamber, and I was like, "Oh shit, he's gonna!" He was like, "Just keep your eyes on it." I was like, "He's about to shoot this fucking thing," and I was like, "He's not gonna say anything. He's just gonna pull the trigger."
Well, it was close enough. It was like
It was a chip shot.
it was going to be an offhand shot. It was just going to be pull up and pop,
Yeah.
And he kind of stood down below us, looked back up at us. And
So he picked you off at that point. Like he knew you were there.
I'm sure he heard us walking up because as soon as we got up on top, he was right below us.
Yeah, and he was already looking back up the hill
Yeah.
at us.
So, but he didn't just bolt away. He just kind of looked back and he'd walk away a little bit, look back. I mean, you could have shot him.
Those horseback riders that were coming across, they were like pretty far away, but they were across the valley from us on the BLM. And he was kind of looking back and forth between us. He saw us, he saw them, so his focus was not solely on us.
Yeah, he was, and it's amazing how far away they pick out other movement and don't forget it.
I don't mean to interrupt, but real quick, I have 2 questions.
Okay.
One, what does BLM stand for?
Bureau of Land Management.
So it's kind of similar to like our WMU.
No.
It's like public ground out
It's just
there.
public ground.
Yeah,
Remember,
it's
we
kind of
had-
like our game lands.
Remember we had the WIAs out in Kansas?
Yeah.
The walk-in areas, or yeah, it was walk-in area. So it sounds like BLM is the same as WIA.
It's probably very similar.
yeah.
I've never been in Kansas, but
Kansas WIA stands for walk-in area.
Yeah.
And it's basically it's essentially public.
Well, there's a lot of BLM land in Ohio that you and I hunted when we were down there. And
Yeah, because they were farmland pieces that had corn planted and
yeah. So and a lot of that BLM land out there might have free range cattle on it too.
yeah, we ran into that in
So,
Kansas. Tom and I
depending on where
were
you're at.
hunting areas that had cattle.
It's a little nerve wracking when you're sitting against a tree and you got a, I don't know how much.
1,200 pound, 2,000 pound bull. You're trying to call a turkey, and this like 2,000 pound bull comes out around this
screaming in
corner.
your face.
But and then my other question was elevation like an issue or not an issue, but like
I didn't notice.
did
it
you
at all.
notice anything with
No.
the elevation?
We were around 7,000 feet. They're a little less.
I think about 7,000 was where it topped out at. Maybe 75. We never got up to the highest peaks.
Yeah, they had some peaks that were well above 7,000, but we were right. I think it was right around like 7,200 was our main hunting area.
I was in Montana back in August, and I didn't notice any elevation, like really notice it until about 8,000. Because my wife and I hiked up above 9, and basically we like when we would start, you might be around like 6 or 7. By the time you got up to 8 was when you were like, this air's thinner. And then you get to 9 and it was like, this is way different than sea level in Pennsylvania.
See, I've never noticed it. I've hiked Pikes Peak in Colorado, which is, it peaks at like 14,200, I think, but I've only been up to like 12,000 on Pikes. And I honestly could not tell you a difference between right around here at 1,200 feet to 12,000 feet. I have never noticed a difference in elevation.
And a lot of that is your conditioning too.
Yeah.
Conditioning, and I noticed just walking, not a problem. We tried, or I shouldn't say tried. We successfully we hiked up to a spot that's about 9,000 feet, and then there was about 100 feet, like rock cliff ish that we were able to climb. And when you exert yourself heavily trying to climb rocks to get that extra 100 feet, that was when I noticed it was like, wow, this is because basically we hiked to a waterfall that was about 200 and some feet down, so it was a huge waterfall, and we wanted to hike up higher to get a better look at it. So we kind of bushwhacked and went up, and I noticed when we were walking at 9,000 feet, it wasn't terrible, but when you started to really exert yourself, it was like, wow, this is.
Then you notice.
Then you notice it, but you recover so quick.
Yeah.
You sit down, it's like in seconds you're back to normal.
Yeah. So we, like I said, I didn't feel like the elevation was a factor in anything we were doing.
No.
So,
Yeah.
So we're sitting there, we're watching this buck walk away, and Gary's kind of looking at me like, you loaded your gun, aren't you going to do something with it now? And this deer's just getting further and further and further away. And I looked at him and go,
He said, well, let's go find another one.
let's go find another one. He'll be a really good buck next year.
You sound like my grandpa.
It's like, got to leave a few for seed,
Yeah.
And So he's like, kind of looked at me like, all right, I'm going to drag this out, And
Well,
I don't
you
know,
pay for
we
a
did glass
5-day
what?
hunt. You might as well use all 5
Yeah,
days.
you got to get your money's worth.
Well, and here's the thing. Once we were done hunting, we were just going to help out around the ranch, and anything that needed to be fixed, worked on, done, we were going to pitch in and help out anyway. So
Yeah.
it wasn't like, I don't know.
Your hunt wasn't over. Like you were
Even
still going to
when our
have a
hunt was
fun
over,
time.
We were going to stick around and do stuff and help out and have fun anyways, So we go back to sitting on our perch up there, and I don't think we were sitting there, 10 more minutes?
Yeah, it wasn't long. It was pretty quick.
And we look across the valley, and I don't know, what was it, 3/4 of a mile?
Yeah, it was pretty far.
Maybe a mile. And,
I don't think it was quite a mile, but it was pretty far.
And here's 2 bucks skylining on a ridge.
That's got to look awesome.
And I mean, you threw your naked eye on them and saw them and knew those were 2 bucks.
You
So
put your binos on,
on
you're
them.
like, all right,
Yeah.
we definitely need the spotting scope.
So got the spotting scope, and it's like, oh yeah, we got to go get. We got to get close.
Let's get a better look.
Yeah.
So
It was immediate. As soon as you put eyes on them, it was like,
we
okay,
bailed
we got
off
to
of
move.
there and kind of got down to the bottom, and
So you're working below them?
so yeah. So here's the bad part: where they were at and where we had to approach them from, everything was kind of bad. So we got as close as we could, kind of parked by this little lake, and then we kind of worked our way up to a little ridge, like embankment.
Yeah,
kind
it
of
was
thing.
kind of because like there's a they call it a lake. It's a pond. It's small.
It's just a watering hole for cattle.
Yeah, and like around it, there's just like a big bank all the way around this, and we kind of rolled up onto this bank, and it was not even 300 yards across to the ridge where these deer were at. So we were in the wheelhouse as soon as we rolled up onto that.
We were
and we
right
saw
where I
it.
wanted to be as far as distance and stuff, and we're sitting there, and I had my gun, and I actually had
Loaded?
it loaded again.
Yep, it was ready to go.
And it's like that 1 buck's pretty good.
And I had my binos on it, and I was like, as soon as I saw it, I was like, he's for sure.
If he's not shooting this,
deer.
what do we do?
Yeah, yes. And I think Skeeter and Gary had the same sentiment that like,
This one's getting shot.
There's no doubt.
We're done hunting right now.
and as soon as I saw it, my heart was freaking pounding. I was so excited because I knew it was about to happen.
And we're looking at him, and we're looking at him, and I kind of moved over towards Skeeter a little bit. And, and
Do you have to
everybody's just kind of looking at me like, "What are you waiting for?"
Do you have to be careful when you're moving? Like you said, you move closer to Skeeter. Like, do you have to be real careful with your movements?
No, he was kind of. There was a couple of does with
They
him and
hadn't even
another
picked
buck.
us off.
And they didn't even know we were there yet. We kind of where we were able to come in from underneath them and get to them. They never figured us out, and we're sitting there. And then all of a sudden, they started to get a little nervous, but they weren't looking at us getting nervous. And I don't know. I was enjoying hunting, and I wasn't ready to end it.
And I was pissed.
I remember you texted me about
I
this
was
deer.
pissed. I thought for sure he was
And
about to pull the
I
trigger,
was like,
and he
We're
pulls his
gonna let it go.
binos
He'll
down.
really
He goes,
be good one next year.
yeah. I was like, you motherfucker.
Frank did tell me about this deer.
And and the next thing he kind of bails, and the buck and all of them kind of bail, and the next thing that shows up is this coyote.
And they told us as soon as we showed up, shoot every coyote you see.
Yeah. So now I was really making a move to try to get close where I get a good shot at this coyote. Well, he didn't stick around long enough, but I was more ready to shoot the coyote than I was that deer.
Yeah. I was not happy.
And he was a pretty good deer.
Because you probably want to watch your dad get his first field deer.
Absolutely. And I was more excited thinking he was about to shoot this deer than I was shooting, and I was fucking pumped to shoot my deer. But thinking, like, I was just locked in the glass, like just waiting for the bullet to go, and he's like, all right, let's go find it. I was like, God damn it.
So everybody's really looking at me like I've completely lost my mind.
Yeah.
And I,
Like, what are we doing here?
Well, and I told Gary, I said, Gary, it's not about killing something for me. I really, guys, I am happy. If you told me I'm done because I passed that up right now, I'm happy.
Yeah.
I'm okay. Because this has just been.
And they're just not used to that.
No, I don't think. Well, how many people do you think would be used to that?
No, most
know,
people,
Nobody.
Yeah.
most people say I'm going to shoot a 160 when I get out there. The
the
first
first-
140 comes out, and they're
The first 100 inch deer that shows up gets
Bam.
shot. Yeah. And I was just, like I said, the weather was nice. I mean, everything
Oh,
about
it was
this
the weather
just,
was so perfect.
I mean, I was literally hunting in a t-shirt and a vest.
Yeah.
I mean, it was just perfect. And so yeah, everybody was kind of looking at me like I was
the
world's biggest
I remember
Nimrod.
Frank texted me and he was like, I don't know what's going on. He literally was like,
mad.
he's like, we had a great buck in range.
gorgeous 4x4, probably 25 wide. Like, it was just.
He's like, and Dad said, well, let's go find another one. I'm like, and I'm sitting here, I'm like, I want to see you get one. Like, not that I'm there, but I'm like, I want to see that, Frank got one. As cool as it is for Frank to get one, it's even more badass if both of you guys get one and then you pass this up. I'm like, what is going on out there?
Yeah.
So, but like I said, it was all good. It was all good. So, that one walked, and then the next day was kind of uneventful. We saw deer, but nothing even close to the caliber of that one we just passed up.
Yeah.
So
are you kicking yourself a little bit at this point?
He did admit.
I did. Yeah, I wasn't kicking myself, but I was.
He said a few times, I probably should have shot
I
that.
did. I was looking back at it going, that was probably the deer I should have shot. Not that I was disappointed. It's kind of like you guys have talked about it on the podcast. If you shoot something and it turns out to be a little less than what you thought,
We've never experienced that.
Don't make excuses.
Yeah.
Own your deer.
Yep, absolutely.
You shot it, own it. Be
We're
happy
very
with
big
it.
on that.
Be happy with it. You shot it. So at the same time, much as I was looking back on it, at the same time I'm going, you made your decision. Be
Accept
happy
it.
with your
Own your decision.
Own your decision. Be happy with your decision, because
whether your decision was to pull the trigger or not pull the trigger, be happy.
Be happy with your decision, because you had the chance to make that decision. Think of the people that came out and didn't have that choice.
Yeah.
So be happy that you could make it.
Last week I was on my my rutcation, and I sent a video to these guys of a 9-point, 15, 20 yards. I made the decision to pass them.
Yep.
I mean, I got some mixed opinions on passing them, but there was some deer that
it was your choice.
There was some deer that were in the area that would have blown that thing out of the water, and I felt okay passing them, and it was to the point where I didn't even grab my bow.
Yep.
And I'm a big advocate for, like, I do target certain deer, where I'm like, this is the deer I'm after, this is why I'm in here.
Yep.
I shoot the first thing that gets me excited, and sometimes that deer is not what I was going in there for.
Right.
But that deer didn't even elevate my heart rate. I just watched him, and I was like, this is cool. And instead of grabbing my bow, I grabbed
with your decision.
I grabbed the camera to video him, and that's what I did. So it sounds like you're in the same boat where you're like...
But you're right. So own your decision. Be happy with it. As far as I'm concerned, those are successful hunts.
Yeah.
Yeah,
absolutely. You could have pulled the trigger if you
All
wanted
you
to.
had to do was pull the trigger.
Yep. A couple pounds of pressure.
Yep.
Yeah. That's how far you were from killing that deer.
Yeah. So, like I said...
And sometimes even just the, I could have had you, is enough.
It's satisfying.
It's satisfying, like, where you're like, you were sitting there.
I beat you. All I had to do was do it.
I could have got you if I wanted. And sometimes that's just enough to, and I've always said, just shoot what makes you excited. And if seeing it was enough for you, leave it at that.
Yeah. Be happy with it. So...
I wasn't happy with it.
Yeah, Frank sent me some very colored texts like, I don't know what's going on. Yeah, we're out here on a mule deer hunt, and
he had a sightseeing tour.
Yeah.
So, but yeah,
because at that point I had kind of taken the.
And your days are dwindling down at this point. I mean,
we still had.
We still had.
Okay.
Yeah, we had a lot of time. But at that point, I had kind of taken on the guide persona, where I'm like, I want to see this guy shoot something, and this guy is my dad, so I
and he's
really want to see him shoot something. And I was getting so pumped every time we saw a deer that I was like, that one's
that's the one. I had to shoot this one, so he better.
Yeah,
Yep.
It was.
So that day went off. Nothing else exciting happened that evening. The next morning, we got up, and there's a mountain from what's basically I'm going to call it was our favorite glassing point that we started at all the time.
Mm-hmm.
We could watch this mountain across the way. It was half a mile away from us, 3/4 of a mile away on the other side of a big drainage. And our plan was to go up there. We'd been seeing some good bucks, and we were going to go up there and start glassing up there the next morning. And we got up there, and there's a elk blind up on top that you park, you hike your way up on top of the ridge, you get up to this blind, and that's where we're going to start doing our glassing.
It was basically like a black shack or a redneck blind that was just on the ground.
Yeah.
Okay. That was my next question. Was what is
elk hunting?
Okay.
Because you kind of got up kind of higher in the elevation, and you could catch these elk coming down off the mountain a little bit. And we got up there and started glassing, and
bucks everywhere.
I mean, literally, we were seeing bucks before we even got to where we were going to start
Buck
glassing.
City.
It was just
they were everywhere,
running around all over the place, and decent looking deer. So we didn't really have anything that gave us a shot opportunity until we got up top. And then what we were going to do is Skeeter decided that he was going to go back and pick up the pickup back a ways, and we were just going to hike down this ridge for, I don't know, half a mile, 3/4 of a mile.
Was our favorite glassing point that we had been talking about. There's a big valley, and then it goes up into this mountain. So Skeeter was going to take the truck back down into this valley and pick us up across from where we had been glassing and right where I shot my buck.
We were just going to hunt our way down this ridge and see what we could find.
Yeah.
And because when we were on that other side glassing back, we were always seeing plenty of good bucks. So we started doing that, and like I said, we were seeing deer. Some of them were across this one drainage that we were working. Not really a good shot opportunity and not a good approach to them, but they were kind of working downhill as well. So they were paralleling us, hadn't seen us, but 500 or 600 yards away?
Yeah, they were probably about 500-600 yards across this valley. There was like a meadow down in the bottom.
Together, we were working down parallel ridges, and so we just kept working and watching them, and they weren't great, but they were bucks that most of their clientele would have shot them. And as we're going down the ridge, I look out in front of us, and here's this little 2x2, just a 1.5-year-old buck. And he's standing there looking at us. He ain't 75 yards away.
You said, that's the one I want.
They started making jokes about that. They're like, watch Frank shoot this little fucking 1.5-year-old thing. He watches all these big bucks, and then he shoots this little thing.
So I'm watching him, and he kind of just rolls off the hill down right below us into where there's a meadow between these two ridges that we're watching. And I kind of turned back, and I looked. He was with Gary. We were about, 50 yards apart?
Yeah, we weren't too far.
Too far apart. And they were kind of watching these two bucks that were working down, paralleling us. And when
there was a couple nice bucks, and it was like right on the edge of the BLM land where this mountain was. And if they had rolled down into like that meadow, they would have been onto us, and we would have been able to hunt them. But they were borderline bucks, and obviously way out of his wheelhouse because he won't shoot fucking anything. But Gary and I our main focus was on these bucks.
So when I saw they were looking back at him, I turned to keep working my way down the ridge, and here comes this buck up from the side that we actually came from to walk up onto this ridge. He kind of came up right across this little saddle in front of me, and never stopped and went down. But he was tall. I mean, I could clearly see, great 4x4. Thought I saw a little kicker coming off one of the other tines. But he never slowed down, never looked at me. He just came up over that saddle and went right where that little 2x2 yearling was at.
Mm-hmm.
And where he bailed, I'm like, I need to get another look at you.
Yeah.
And I got you, because you can't go up that ridge without me seeing you, and you're in range. If you try to go downhill to the bigger creek drainage, I'm going to see you going that way. The only place for you to go is, all I got to do is roll off this hill, and I'm going to get a good look at you. And all I wanted to do was see how wide he was, because what I saw from the side, I was shooting him. I made up
finally.
I was going to shoot this deer. So I kind of looked back at them and I kind of like flagged them over.
Yeah, he
I'm
was like, hey.
You guys are working on your hand signals.
Yeah. We got one to go look at, fellas, right here. We rolled off that side. And, I mean, he couldn't come back without me seeing him. He couldn't go down the bottom. He couldn't go up the other side. And if he shot straight back up, Skeeter was going to see him. We
So
rolled
you
off
had them locked.
We had him. He wasn't leaving us. We were going to see this deer. He was going to look at us. I was going to see well outside his ears, and he was getting a bullet. We rolled down into there, got to where we could see everything you could see, and there wasn't a deer to be found.
It was back to what Clay said. If you lose sight of a mule deer,
The little 2x2 was gone. He was gone. There wasn't a doe to be seen. Nothing.
we thought we could see everything. When we lost sight of him, it was like everywhere that he could bail to, we had eyes on. And
Wow.
And he evaporated.
yeah, and what Clay said, if you lose sight of a mule deer, they are gone.
They will find the slightest little fold in that terrain and use it against you.
They will disappear.
And just evaporate. It's impressive actually how well they did it. And
Gives you a lot of respect for that animal.
It does.
Yeah,
It
it
does,
You guys
'cause
don't have
they
a whole
are,
lot
They
of-
are masters of their terrain. So once we decided that this thing just went up like magician's flash paper and just disappeared.
Does it almost like frustrate you when you get down there and you're like, because
I was frustrated.
You're playing the
I thought
scenario
it was
out.
impressive.
I was impressed, but also frustrated because I was like, I thought I could see everything.
That's what you're saying.
Because
Like,
when he
if
was like,
goes this
he's
way,
right there, I was like, because we
There should have
started,
been 2 bucks right there.
yeah,
And
and we
both of them were gone.
We didn't like split up, but we were 75 yards apart, and I kind of went up high. Dad and Gary kind of went down low, and I was like, he's right here. There's no doubt that he is right here. We're gonna put eyes on this deer, and he was gone. And I was like, where the hell could he have gone? Like, there's no way he evaded us, but he obviously did. We never put eyes on
The
him.
only other thing that them deer can be doing
Is laying down.
laying down, and I mean laying flat, like a sleeping dog, and getting everything tucked in underneath that sagebrush. But most of that sagebrush ain't 18 inches deep.
Yeah, it's knee high.
It just, I mean, you got to almost have a lot more respect for him after hunting him like that,
yeah.
where you're like, because you're sitting there like, if he goes this way, I got him. If he goes this way, I got him. If he comes this way, you got him. Like, everything to you was just perfect.
And I'm sure right now there's mule deer hunters out there going, you guys just don't know what the hell you're doing. And in all honesty, they're right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is our
We
first time
don't.
out there doing it. So without a doubt, we're rookies
Yeah.
at this game,
But you got to
it was-
start somewhere.
It was fun doing it though, and learning it and making the mistakes.
It was a huge learning experience.
Yes.
It was super fun to see how different it is from how we hunt.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, but so we finished our walk down, and as luck would have it, the 2 better bucks that were on that other ridge followed us right down. Never really got eyes on us, and we had them within what, 250.
Yeah. Yeah, they were pretty close, but they stayed on the BLM land, and
They were right on the line. I mean,
he had said that he wouldn't have shot him, so it was a moot point.
yeah,
But
they were close, but
Yeah,
again,
but there was one
they were
across
really
the valley.
good seed.
Yeah.
Yeah,
There was
there
one across the valley right below our favorite glassing point. And had we been right there, it would have been like a 200-yard shot, money,
That was
chip shot.
Looked like one that probably would have got a bullet thrown at it.
Yeah, so we started trying to make a move, and we were slowly working down this ridge and like deeper into the creek bottom, and taking our knowledge of how they use the terrain, and like if you see just the slightest deviation in a hill, that's where they're gonna be. There was just a little dip, and it couldn't have been 3-4 feet, this little dip in this ridge. And I was like, he's going to walk right to that and come down into this hill using that little time. It was literally a 3-foot dip. And he would have come down into the
Right into our
deeper
lap.
creek valley and right into us. And we're watching him, and he's coming right to it. He gets right to the top of that little
Cut.
3-foot cut. And I was like, he's about to bail in here. And Dad had already said, if he comes in, I'm shooting him. I was like, we got him.
We're in.
He's done. He's freaking done.
Is the gun loaded at this point?
No, because
No,
we were moving.
we were moving.
There were
So
bullets in the magazine, but anytime we're walking, barrels are empty.
Okay.
yeah,
Magazine's full, barrels empty.
yeah. So all of us had the same opinion. Like, as soon as he hits this tiny little terrain change, he is going to bail into the big gut down to the river bottom, and he'll get
we
into
got
some
him.
brush, and we'll be able to make a move, have a couple 100-yard shot. It'll be money. And he got right to that point, and he stood there for like 5 minutes, and we tucked down.
Well, he was looking back at the horseback riders again.
No, the doe was. He was looking at us. He was with a doe that was looking at the horseback riders. And he just stood right in that little 3-foot dip, right at the top of it. And the whole time I was like, he's coming down.
He has to.
As
Yeah.
soon as he started down, we were going to move to our spot,
And it was,
and it was done,
over.
Done deal.
Yeah, we had him dead to rights.
You're already
And-
picking out the form.
Oh, exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
Our plan is laid out. We know
Yeah.
exactly what
This
we're
is
doing.
foolproof.
All
We
he had
got
to do
him.
was take 2-3 steps down that hill, so we knew he was coming, and
Yeah.
it was money.
Yeah, and the doe had never stopped looking at the horseback rider. She never took her eyes off him. She didn't look our way one time. But he was kind of back and forth, and he got to that little dip, and I was like, he's about to bail in. All we got to do is move up 200 more yards, and he's in range. He stood there for 5 minutes, and like we're moving in, and when he stopped there, we kind of just sat down, and we're like, we're just going to wait him out and let him do his thing.
What time of day is this? Like, what kind of timeline?
It was actually way later than
About
we
ele-
were usually
Yeah, it was
hunting.
about 11 o'clock in the morning at this point.
Yeah.
So I get what I'm trying to paint the picture here. Is you got plenty of time.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's 11
Yeah,
in the
I
morning.
just
This
making
is-
sure
this
that
is
you're
the
not-
morning hunt.
No, yeah, it was a
Okay.
morning hunt.
Okay, I'm just trying to
Yeah.
paint the picture that you're not like fighting time.
No,
No.
we had all day.
All day. No pressure.
Yeah, and he is, like I said, sitting in that little dip, and I'm just glass on him, waiting to drop down in, and he's hanging out, and it was probably 10 minutes we sat there watching him, and he just turned around, walked over, and went to the other side of the ridge and didn't do what every one of us thought he was going to
Yep.
do.
Bailed
He
off
just
the backside, headed towards BLM land. Game over.
done.
Let's go watch football.
Yep. And as soon as he bailed, we're like, all right, it's time to go. We're done for the morning, and went back to camp. And like Dad said, we went back. That was Saturday, wasn't it? We watched college football. Yeah, because yeah,
Yeah, because
And-
we watched Penn State get their asses handed to them.
yeah, they did.
Was that
And-
the Ohio State game?
Yep.
yeah, it was.
Yep. That's how rough this camp is.
Oh.
You got to watch college ball.
Unreal.
Yeah, so we get back to camp after that hunt, and it was actually really funny. The whole time we were doing that little stalk, the ranch manager and his one ranch hand were sitting at this one little
They were
water
draining
tank.
a water tank.
Yeah, they were draining a water tank, and they could see us working down the mountain. They could see us. They could see the deer the whole time. They were just watching
the whole
back and
thing
forth.
play out.
It was actually kind of cool to watch because we would glass the deer, glass over onto them. They're like, "Oh yeah, they're still watching us." We were making fun of them, like,
And
"We're
they
not
had
getting any
deer working
fucking
up the
work
hill
done."
to them, underneath them, that they couldn't see.
Yeah, there was,
was coming up
does coming up out of the valley right to them to get to that little watering hole. It was everything about that. That was probably
That was a fun
we
morning.
killed 2 deer out there. That was my favorite stock. Everything about that was just so much fun, watching everything unfold around us and how long it took.
Everything was unsuccessful, but it was just
It was super fun.
Even at 11 o'clock in the morning, you got all day. Like you're
yeah.
not fighting time. Like
No.
you can let this
But you
play.
could definitely see how everything about that 11 o'clock mark,
They were trying to get back into the
everything was
valleys,
just
into the
moving
shade.
into the thickets.
In the morning, like we said, they bail into the sunlight and try to get into the warmth. Once it starts getting warmer, they bail back into the sunlight. It's
almost like snakes.
I'm sorry, into
Yep.
the shade.
It's almost like snakes in a
they,
sense,
they,
where it's
they
like
want
that.
the sun on their
Yeah.
back until it gets warm, and then they want to get back in the.
Yeah, once they get warm, it's like, okay, let's
Yep.
get back into the shade.
Yep.
Yeah.
So that was, that was Saturday.
Yeah, and we went back to watch college football, and Clay was guiding a couple elk hunters, and they were out on a piece of the property that we hadn't been on because they were focusing on elk back there. We're like, we don't need to go back there.
We
They're
had plenty of
elk.
ground.
leave 'em alone.
We had all
Yeah.
kinds of ground to cover. We were seeing all kinds of deer. No reason to put added pressure where the guys were elk hunting.
Yep, fair enough.
But while they were driving back there, Clay was like, "Hey, you guys might want to take a ride. There's a 30-inch muley out there, and 30 is like the number for muley. Like,
That's like a 20-inch whitetail.
yeah, if you're looking for a trophy muley, it starts with a 30-inch spread." And Clay was like, "I think." He's like, "This one's 30. You guys should take a look."
That's just like, there's certain attributes that a deer or a whitetail, a mule deer, and elk that they have that you need that to become
The next
that
class.
trophy or that trophy, that next class, like you said.
he did
in
say,
30s.
but he knew. He goes, but it's only a 4x3
Yeah, it didn't have a fork on the
one
back of the one side.
Sounds like right up your alley. It's weird.
He said, but you guys probably should go up and try to take a peek at it.
Yeah.
So that was what our next big plan was to go see if we could lay eyes on him. And we headed up that way. And
How far is this from where you were?
6 miles.
yeah.
Okay, so you gotta go.
Because we had to cross a bunch of BLM land
It was
and another piece of private land to get over to.
When they talk about it, they say outback. That you're going way
6
out
miles.
back.
That's out back.
Yeah.
Well, and that's not even all the way to the back. Like,
Yeah, that's-
to
Takes
get
a whole
all the
nother
way,
meeting to the back 40.
Yeah, the back 40 is 10 miles.
Yeah. So, but that was our plan then. We're going to go try to lay eyes on this deer. Because Clay says it's something that got to get shot. Could be a 30-inch buck. It's only a 4x3, but
It's a good buck.
But it's worth shooting.
30 inches wide. Yeah, let's go.
So we load up and we're driving out to get to that area, to one of the glassing spots out there, and
we were still driving.
We had just gotten onto property we could hunt. We came across all the BLM and this other piece of private ground, and I was in the back seat of the truck. Whitey was in the front seat. He's like, "Stop! There's a buck."
And he was tucked into this brush and
up on a hillside. I mean, I don't know how he picked it.
It was a good pick. I'll toot
it was
my
a
own
real
horn.
good pick.
It was a good pick.
Because there wasn't much of them showing. I mean, you saw horns sticking up out of the brush.
And it was meshed right in with the brush.
Yeah.
Like it looked like he was just part of the red brush.
So we stopped.
And I was like, stop right there.
Hit the brakes. Let's go.
So we stopped and kind of worked our way down the road a little bit to try to get a better vantage point on him. And we're trying to glass him. And the way he's sitting, all you can see is the side of his horns. And they were good. They were real good.
Another one of those ones, like just off of that one side.
Yeah,
it's
we
like,
just
hey,
need you to turn and let us know that you're not like 12
17
inches wide. Yeah, right. Let us see some girth. See if you got some eye guards on you. What? You just need to give us a better look. Well, we kind of kept working our way, and he just wouldn't give us the look we wanted. And this goes back to what happened with his deer.
Mm-hmm.
And we needed him to turn his head from where we were at. We needed him to turn his head 90 degrees. So we're sitting there, we're glassing him, and he's 150 yards?
You would think
Yeah,
that's not a big deal to like wait for him to turn his head, but man,
because they are such sight animals, when they lock in on something,
They are locked
they're
on.
not turning their head.
So we had Whitey. We told him, you walk back down the road a little bit. See if we can get his head to.
Like we said when my deer, when we were hunting him, when we split up, is when he stood up. We made him nervous. Mm-hmm. So Dad took that knowledge and was like, all right,
split off. Let's
Split
go.
up. Let's see
make
if we
him
get
look
it.
somewhere else.
Well, he did. He stood up, turned around, rolled right off the backside.
He did give a good look
and
before he left.
And we could have shot him, and he
Yeah.
was pretty good. And Gary's like, "That's a nice buck." And I was like,
And Dad didn't shoot.
and I'm like, "Yeah."
And he did. He was actually on the shooting sticks,
Yeah.
but he passed.
I tell you what, those guys that come into camp next year are going to be so happy with all the seed you left.
I'm telling you, I'm not lying when I say I passed 10 deer that
Every other guy would shoot.
in his camp would have shot. I passed up 10 of them.
You're doing God's work out there. You're just making sure that next year's guys have bucks to chase.
So Gary's like looking at me like, we came out here for a good buck. We found a good buck, and you let another one block.
Yeah. Gary
you're
said,
up to two. You're up to 2 strikes.
Yeah.
At this point.
Gary said later, he was like, "Boy, Frank should have pulled the trigger on that one. That was a missed opportunity."
I think with all the bucks Uncle Frank left, Nick, we ought to go out there next year.
We have to get on the waiting list. I'm telling you right now.
Yeah, there's gonna be some like 200s out there because he won't shoot anything.
So about that time, Gary looks off to our left, and down in this little draw, he catches a glimpse of a handful of does and a little buck. Well, while we were pissing around with this buck, they kind of got to make on us, and they don't bolt, but they just eased off into a thicket.
Yeah, they use the terrain, they slowly work into it and disappear.
Settle and disappear. So Skeeter and Gary are like, well, let's go down the road a little further. There's another lookout point that we can look glass back to here on. And maybe we'll catch him trying to scoot out the bottom or something like that. So we go down the road. It wasn't a quarter of a mile, maybe a little bit further.
Far.
It wasn't far. But it let us get to this lookout point.
The way it was kind of shaped, the terrain almost made a semicircle.
Yeah. So you were just kind of going around the loop so you could look back at what was just underneath you. And we get over there and we get all kind of set up and start glassing, and we're just nosing around looking, and we're focused back on where those deer were that we wanted to see, and we'd take a peek back at that buck that we lost, and I think we did actually even see him one more time.
Yeah, we did.
Off the back side of that. And then all of a sudden, I think Gary saw him first.
Yeah, Gary saw him first.
And he's like, holy shit, there he is.
He said, that's the 30-incher.
That's the 30-incher. And we all kind of, everybody's head spins, and it's like,
as soon as everyone pulled their binos up,
it was
Dad's binos went down, and he grabbed the gun.
Yeah.
As soon as
nothing
his
dies
binos
looking
went
through
down,
binoculars, pal.
Yeah.
The gun was up, ready to go.
At that point, my heart rate went through the freaking roof, because when his binos didn't come up, and he was ready to.
It was all about
all
the
his
rifle.
focus was on the gun, getting a bullet in, time to go. I was like, this deer is about to get a bullet. There's no doubt in my mind.
So we ranged it, and at that point we were like 375.
You guys had worked down the hill a little bit. Me and Skeeter at that point were like, we're just gonna stay here, let them work this deer. And they worked down a little bit, and I did not pull my binos down one time.
You've learned that if you take your eyes off it, it disappears.
It disappears.
I was locked on this deer, and they started working down, and at one point I could see the deer, and I saw Dad throw his gun up on the sticks. I was like, no way.
Heart rate's got to be through the roof.
I was in panic mode, full panic mode. Like, it was about to happen.
No, panic mode's about to come.
Yeah.
Yeah, little foreshadowing.
Yeah. But in my binos, in my field of view, I could see Dad and the deer.
That's awesome.
It was, and I was like, he's about to do it, and I'm about to see the entire fucking thing.
Yeah. So, trying to get on him, and he's, from the vantage point that Gary and I had, I mean, I was shooting right up his ass.
And he was a little over 300, and Dad's like, I want to get a little closer.
And he kept just walking, not moving fast, but he just kept taking a step.
He hadn't made us.
In a step. Did not know Gary and I were below him. Didn't know those guys were back there watching him, So we made another move, and we got it down to about 250.
And I was locked on this deer. It was...
Gary threw the shooting sticks back up there. Now, this is going to sound hard to believe. I'm 60 years old, almost. I have never shot off a set of shooting sticks.
I believe that. Just based on your history.
My whitetail hunting has been offhand. I mean,
because 99% of your shots have probably been 75 and in.
I've shot deer 200 yards with a Springfield, 1873 Springfield, 45-70. I've killed deer 200 yards.
I've seen that guy.
He killed a caribou at 425 offhand.
Offhand.
425 offhand.
Well, I was shooting a lot back then. I don't shoot as often as I used to. So I grabbed the shooting sticks and I wasn't real comfortable with them, but I'm trying to
I want to freehand this shit.
I'm trying to lock into these shooting sticks and I'm trying to get on this deer and all I got is his ass. And
I'm going to jump over to me at this point.
And I'm talking to Gary, telling him, all I got's his ass. All I got's his ass. Well, then he finally takes like 2 steps and turns.
And they were a couple hundred yards from us. Skeeter and I were way back. And Skeeter's in the spotting scope. I'm in my binos. And this deer turns, and he's perfectly broadside with us.
So now you're like, here's the opportunity.
No, Skeeter called it. As soon as this deer took 2 steps and just slightly turned,
blown, wide open broadside,
and he turned and
So
looked.
is he looking? So you see the 29, 30 inch.
Oh yeah.
He's just kind of looking around, and I'm not looking at, because once I know I'm going to shoot something, I quit looking at anything but what I want to hit.
Yeah, so that's a good plan.
Skeeter and I see him. He just slightly turns and he looks back, and I hear Skeeter go, "Frank, that's your shot." Half a second after Skeeter said, "Frank, that's your shot," boom.
Gun goes off. I'm sitting there. Now, from where I'm at, he's perfectly broadside. And I'm trying to get out, and I'm trying to use these shooting sticks, and I'm leaning into him, really trying to lock in on. And I was just getting this wiggle. I wasn't rock solid. I touched off.
And I
puked.
You're watching.
I could see everything. I could see everything, and he touched the trigger off. I hear the bullet go, and I watch the bullet hit in front of the deer's chest.
You're like, oh no!
Miss.
It just got
clean
right
fucking
under,
miss.
Boom.
And
your heart has to sink.
It did, dude. My heart fucking broke at that point. I was so let down. I was like, he does not miss what just happened.
I've been hunting for almost 20 years. I've been watching you hunt for over that, and Uncle Frank don't miss.
No,
it doesn't.
So,
it doesn't
I watched
happen.
The rocks go flying, and I went, "Son of a bitch!" And Skeet was like, "Did he miss?" I said, "Yeah."
You did not hear anything hit, but nothing but
it's
dirt.
weird. Even with a bullet, you can tell.
I knew. I mean, as much as you come off of with the sticks, I couldn't stay. I didn't stay on the deer real well, but I knew I missed that deer. I racked another round in. He was confused.
He did, yeah,
because it got in front of his chest, but past him into the bank behind him.
So he's almost looking
the wrong way.
There's a sound from here. The bullet hits past him in the hillside, and he just kind of turns and gets quartered away from
steps.
Me. And he's starting to go up the hill, and I'm like, screw that. I jacked
it
another
almost
round
does a
in,
reset to you where you're like,
and I still had the gun with the shooting sticks, but now I was off-handing it and just letting the shooting sticks kind of float a little bit. I mean, I was still kind of using them, but I was more offhanded.
You're doing your thing.
I had to get into my comfort zone, pulled up, pow, and it was thwap.
I watched that bullet go in because even when he missed, I didn't drop my binos like it's over. He took a couple steps. I was like, he's still right there. He's still right there. He still got him.
We have a chance.
I watched that bullet go in. This deer fucking locks up.
It takes like 4 steps backwards.
He slow steps backwards. He was already dead. And it was so cool to watch this deer just slow steps backwards and then fold. It was by far.
It's what you dream of.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I have never been so excited any time in the woods. I was so jacked about. I literally turned around and punched the hood of the vehicle. Like I was so jacked up. I was like, Skeeter, he fucking got him. He's like, oh yeah, he's done. He's like, he doesn't need another bullet in that one because he was still standing as he was backing up, and he's like, no, he's done. It was.
Yeah, it was lights out. But yeah, so there's when you look at the picture of Whitey's bullet and my 2, it's like the old Sesame Street game. One of these things doesn't belong there.
Yeah,
it's that miss.
So Frank actually put on our story 3 pieces of brass.
Yeah, one of those did not hit its mark.
Yeah, and so it was kind of like that interlude foreshadowing to like, hey, what happened? Because
Yeah.
we've really kept this
What's wrong
story.
with this picture?
We've kept this story under wraps for this point. We've kind of, I feel like we've done a pretty good job of build up to this point. And, like Frank said, 3 bullets, we got 3 pieces of brass. And for you to be able to get your composure back, because like there's got to be this like instant like, fuck.
It was more of like, you dumbass. You knew you weren't
That's what
comfortable.
I said too.
When you took that shot, you knew you weren't 100% comfortable. You should have, because the deer didn't know we were there.
He did not look at us.
I should
one
have
time.
played with them sticks a little more, got them set a little bit steadier. But we were kind of on little hills. It was just like new to me. It wasn't my style of shooting and stuff. And I'm not making excuses. It's all on me. I missed, But
But it's how you followed it up.
oh yeah, but once I missed, I was like, my whole mindset
It changes.
It just changed. I was like, oh hell with this. Let's shoot something.
Screw these shooting sticks.
Back to the basics.
Do what you know how to do and just shoot the damn thing.
So you watch it fall.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
I watched it fall.
It walked like 3 steps backwards and collapsed.
Yeah.
It was done.
And then you really couldn't even see him hardly at all.
Yeah, he kind of fell into some sage.
And that was it. He disappeared again.
And me and Skeeter, because at this point, we could not see them. And we saw the deer fall, and Skeeter was like, he got him. And I was so fucking jacked. Me and Skeeter were shaking hands, high-fiving, all that. I'm pounding the hood of the truck. I was like, let's fucking, like, we got to get over there right now. I wanted to beat him to the deer. Like, I was just so excited. I could
Probably
not,
more excited than when you shot your own.
I 100% was more excited watching that.
It's funny
than
how that works. You're always happier for the other person
Yeah,
sometimes.
There is no way I could possibly wrap words around how excited I was.
But that's why we do it.
Yeah.
That's what drives us to do this.
The good stuff, the bad stuff, it all comes together. And
you had the highs, like all those bucks,
high and low.
You had the highs of seeing these bucks.
Yep.
You had the ultimate low of missing, which you've got split second to decide what you're going to do with
Next,
this. What's my next move, and then capitalizing on that. Just that's why we do it. That's what gets us outside. That's what gets us to continue to do this thing.
Yeah,
over and
I
over.
literally have tears in my eyes thinking about it because I was so excited the whole time, from the time we set up and Dad didn't grab his binos and went for his gun. I was like, he's doing it.
Yeah,
And
and there it sounds like there's just so much build up to this point because you've passed so many bucks.
Yep.
You've got points where like the guides are like, what the hell is this guy doing?
What's it
Why is he
gonna take?
passing this? And then all of a sudden, you've passed all these deer, and then it's like, hey, we've got a 30-inch muley walking around out here that needs a bullet.
now, he did end up being short of 30. He was like 28 and a half,
29. No,
29.
he was over 29.
Did he get to 29?
He was over 20. He was like
I know how
29
that
and
feels.
4.
I have a buck that's 19 and 15/16 wide, and nobody at this table will let me take 20.
Yeah, can't have it. But
I know the
made,
feeling.
We made fun of Clay because he came back to camp and was like, "There's a 30-incher out there," and we put a tape on it. It was 29 3/4. We're like, "Well, you're a fucking liar."
I wouldn't have shot this if you told me it was 29 and 6/8.
But no, it turned out good.
And we get up to it, and me and Skeeter were on a different ridge watching this all, so we drove around to get closer to the deer, bring the vehicle over. And as soon as we started getting out of the truck, he's like, does Gary have his pack? I was like, I'm grabbing my pack. He's like, well, grab Gary's pack. I was like, nope, I'm going to grab my pack. Because I knew there were knives in it. So I grabbed my pack, throw it on, we get up to the deer, and I'm through the roof excited. I'm
Oh yeah.
shaking hands, everything, grabbing the deer. Like, this is the coolest fucking thing I've ever seen.
To me, I mean, for you at that point, this has probably got to be like the epitome of excitement for whitetail,
Yeah.
or I mean, for whitetail, for like big game hunting.
Oh, for sure. That is
you
the most excited I've ever been hunting in my entire life. Nothing matches that.
You were pretty excited when you shot your black bear with a bow up on the tanner.
Yeah, no, but this was better than that.
Because when you shot that black bear, you turned to me and looked at me and goes, I just shot a bear.
Yeah, that was up. That's probably number 2, but this is far and away number 1. I've never been so excited watching him shoot that deer, and just the way it all unfolded and being able to watch it from a distance was unreal.
It's weird because, you know, we work so hard to like be successful, and when I say success, it's like to kill that thing. And obviously it's not all about that. But I know one of the most exciting times I've ever had in the woods was when my dad texted me and shot a buck for the first time since, you know, because we started hunting at 10, and my dad basically, his whole idea of hunting changed to let's get my kids into it.
That's just a dad thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, he did the same thing.
So I was probably 23. My dad texted me and said, hey, I just shot a buck. And I was similar to that, where it was like, I've never felt that excitement.
Yeah.
We were prime rut, 7:30, 8 o'clock in the morning. I packed up my stand so damn fast, I beat him back to camp. You know, I was so excited, so elated to see somebody else kill. And I think that's
the part of hunting that's truly fun. It's that when that camaraderie comes together, whether it's friends, family, whatever, however you associate yourself with different members you hunt with, when all that comes together and you're truly happy to see somebody else be successful, those are the best hunting experiences.
Yeah, I mean, like, I've killed some good bucks, I've killed some good turkeys, but the hunt that sticks out the most to me is my dad texting me and saying, I got a buck, and that track, you know, looking for the blood, and we're all, you know, fanned out looking for blood and stuff, and then here, like, you know, Tom and I are following blood. My dad kind of did a big loop and was like, he yells out, yo, buck, you know, so we're all like, I mean, just absolutely jacked. And it sounds like it's a similar situation where like you're like, there's nothing that can top watching your dad get on one, because something about understanding the time that your dad sacrificed.
Yeah, because he put so much time into teaching me how to hunt and to bring it full circle and to watch him,
and to watch him screw it up.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because all the time he put into, like, this is how you do it. This is, you know, start to finish from the beginning of my hunting career was all him watching me shoot.
Yeah,
and to flip the script and watch him do it was
because I mean,
I literally have tears in my eyes talking about it.
My dad spent a decade not hunting to his ability to teach me and Tom to hunt, and
that's exactly what,
you know,
this
and
was.
For years it was, you know, my dad watching us kill bucks, and you know, he sat in the background, was like, oh, this is awesome, and then to watch that flip and finally see your dad put one down, and it's like you said, it's the decade long trip of like teaching you everything, and then finally watching it come full circle is just something that you can't replicate.
I can promise you, your dad enjoyed every single hunt you guys were successful.
So he probably had that feeling
every time you guys did something.
When we saw him shoot one, that he probably had that same feeling every time he watched us shoot one.
Absolutely, he did.
Yeah, and I think especially the age that we're at, that you know, we're in our late 20s. Tom's starting a family here. We see that it's going to start, you know, the next generation is going to start coming through.
Yep. And come full circle.
Yeah. And I think it just means so much more at watching 10 years go by of, you know, your dad focusing so much on making you the hunter that he wants you to be, or the hunter that you want to be. And then finally watching it come full circle where you're like, my dad got one, and there's something special about that your mentor that taught you everything that you know, he succeeded. You know,
like I said, we had an absolute ball out there.
Yeah. It was no joke. I'm sorry.
No, that's what it is.
It's all about.
That's what hunting is to us. It's more than
than killing something.
It's so much more than killing it, and I wish that I could put words to that to the people that don't hunt. Understanding that it's so much more than just pulling the trigger.
Yeah.
It's the relationship that you build with people. It's the effort that's put in, and just over so much time, it all coming together.
Without a doubt. Without a doubt.
So it's amazing to hear it finally come to fruition, and for Frank to be able to sit kind of back, watch like in the scope or in the binoculars, watching the buck, everything go down, and then the ultimate low to seconds later, the ultimate high.
Yeah.
You know, it plays with your emotions so much, and until you experience that, you'll never fully understand it.
Yeah, for sure. Like, it's honestly just now, like, fully setting into me, like, everything, because I haven't told the full story of what happened. You know, the people that were there, Skeeter and Gary, my dad, me, we all witnessed it. We were all on that high and enjoying it, but I haven't taken that step back to fully assess it and really think about it until just now, and it's literally, there's nothing that compares to that.
Yeah.
Absolutely not.
It's amazing. So happy for both of you guys. You know,
we couldn't have had a better trip. We really couldn't. We owe a lot of thanks to Skeeter and Gary and everybody out there.
Makes me want to start talking to Skeeter. Get some preference brownie points out there.
And like I said, it's a very comfortable hunt. You can make it as easy or as difficult as you want to make it, but it's gonna be enjoyable. You're gonna be around good people. You're gonna see critters. I just can't say enough good things about everybody out there at that ranch, and
you meet
the
some
people that made stuff go well for us.
You meet some amazing people through the hunting community.
Yes,
you for sure do.
I mean, even just in the I say short time, you know, the almost nearly 5 years that we've been doing this, the amount of people that we've met through this, and, you know, through the guiding that you guys done in Alaska and Colorado. And it's just, you don't get that community from anywhere else.
No.
No. It's incredible.
So, but that's our story.
That's one hell of a story.
Yeah. It's amazing. You went from the highest of highs to lows, and then back to highs.
No.
If that doesn't get you excited to go out, get outdoors, and maybe plan your first adventure hunt, I don't know what's gonna do it.
No.
You know.
No. No. Don't do it alone.
Absolutely.
Find somebody you like to hunt with, and take them along.
Yeah, and that's a big part of doing stuff like that. And making those memories isn't just going out on that hunt, is having somebody to share it with. Yeah.
We're really big on that. Is like we have a lot of friends, but there's very few people that you let into that hunting circle.
There's 4 people in the entire world that I will hunt with, and 3 of them are in this room right now.
Yeah.
There's you really have to find the right people that you can go out on that hunt with to maximize everything you want out of the hunt.
Yeah.
And
absolutely.
Even if you kill nothing, you can come away from that hunt with those people with the utmost memories and have so much fun with all of that. And that's what this was. If Dad and I didn't kill a single thing out there,
we would have had a great time.
Yeah, it would have been still my favorite hunt we ever had. Yeah. And Dad and I
I'd have come back just as happy as I am right now.
Yeah.
Yep.
We've had so many great hunts together, and that still would have topped all of them, even if we didn't kill anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But again, I want to thank everybody out there: Skeeter, Gary, Clay, Travis, Gracie.
Yeah. Everybody did a great job.
Yep.
So.
All right.
And
thanks,
awesome guys.
Before we check out, the owner of the ranch and Gary let us do some stuff because I've had an idea since we first started talking about this hunt for a mount. I knew this was going to be a very special hunt, and I wanted to like fully encapsulate this hunt with a mount. And it's 2 separate deer. You know, we had 2 separate hunts, but it was still together.
It's the same experience.
Yeah, exactly. And as soon as we started talking about this hunt, I started looking at ways to mount deer like as one thing. And found some good ideas and like, oh, we could do this, we could do that. And I had a couple good ideas. And then after Dad killed his deer, I was like, well, we're getting these mounted for sure. And I pulled up a couple ideas and showed him, and he was like, what if we talk to Gary and Roger that owns the ranch and see if we can steal like a fence post, and something that's from the ranch to really bring the whole hunt together in this mount. And they were like, yeah, go ahead. Yeah,
That's important to bring it all together like that.
It is. So after, the day after we killed Dad's deer, we went out, we did some work. They finally put us to work. We were begging for them to put us to work the whole time, and they finally did after Dad killed his deer. And we went and put some heaters out in the elk blinds for the next group of hunters that were coming out, did a few things. And while we were out doing that, we stopped by this one old corral that was way out on the back 40, and
wasn't being used. It was all rotted out.
Yeah, it was
collapsed, and I mean, it was just
hadn't been used in forever.
Remnants of an old corral.
It had been burned a little bit from a fire that came through. Like, it was just super old, weathered fence posts, and we're like, that is perfect. Dad had the idea to use a fence post from the farm, and so we pulled this fence post out of the ground, and it's a big like 6x8 fence post.
Yeah, it's a big post.
Yeah,
it's old cedar. Like I said, it's been through a fire, and
yeah, it's super cool. So Dad and I are gonna build a pedestal to put this on and mount the 2 deer on this fence post and have them. We haven't decided how we're gonna have them postured yet, but it's gonna be a super cool mount that's really gonna bring the whole story together. We found a deadhead while we were out there to put as like a little bit of habitat with it, a couple like old sagebrush stuff that. It's going to be a super cool mount to really encapsulate the feelings of that hunt.
I'm a big advocate for making its way to this permanent studio.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But
yeah, once we have the real studio completely done, that wouldn't be a bad spot for it.
That wouldn't be a bad spot for it. I'd be up for that.
So we'll play that out as it goes.
Yeah.
But I want to say congratulations to both of you guys.
Thank you.
Hearing your guys' story without being there, this is about as close as I could get to doing it. And I'm just so happy for both of you guys. And even though it was a week-long hunt, there's so many years that build up to this event, and just could not be happier for you guys. This has been an absolute awesome experience for you guys both to get your first mule deer together, and great mule deer to be.
We're very, very happy. Very happy.
And probably by the next episode, we'll probably have some scores for everybody. So
good chance.
Good deal.
Good chance.
So I guess on that note, that kind of story right there is.
That's why we do it.
This is why we do it. So I hope you guys can take this kind of energy and apply it to your own lives. We're mid-November. You guys know what to do. Get outside.